Chapter 646. I cannot retreat. Once I retreat, even if that sword light does not kill me, it will still put me at a disadvantage. Xiaochen had already forgotten that he only needed to endure 20 moves to clear the stage. He was now fully immersed in the fight, thinking about the drawbacks of the situation. Xiaochen gathered quintessence in his body and forcefully endured the sea of fire. He extended his spiritual sense and quickly searched for that sword light. Boom. Even with the protection of quintessence, every inch of Xiaochen's skin felt a burning pain. However, he ignored it and focused on searching for the hidden sword light. Found it. Xiaochen's face lit up in joy. He did not give his opponent a chance to make the first move. He released a sharp saber intent, and electricity leaped about in the sea of fire. Then, he clashed with the sword light that had not reached its peak yet. Bang! When the saber and sword clashed, there was a loud clanging sound. The light scattered and instantly scattered the sea of fire. Countless sparks flew in all directions. The white-haired old man moved back, retreating 100 meters in the blink of an eye. He stood upright with his sword in hand, not injured at all. On the other hand, although Xiaochen managed to knock back the old man, his hair and eyebrows were burnt yellow. He looked somewhat strange. The white-haired old man smiled faintly and said, "Little fellow, are you bullying me because my cultivation is not high? How dare you be so reckless?" Xiaochen felt somewhat embarrassed. The old man was right. If he had used the same cultivation as Xiaochen, that sea of fire would have severely injured Xiaochen. That flaming sea of sword images could severely injure Xiaochen. There was no chance for him to find the hidden sword light. However, your comprehension ability and eyesight are not bad. Again. The white-haired old man laughed loudly and sent out another sea of fire at Xiaochen. However, this time, he raised his cultivation to the same cultivation as Xiaochen, breaking the rules. Xiaochen followed the old man's example, using the lunar shadow saber to execute this sea of lightning saber light and attacking again. Bang! This time, the sea of lightning created by Xiaochen's saber light lasted for 3 breaths of time before shattering. Xiaochen, on the other hand, was sent flying by the sea of fire. Within the sea of flames, another swift and fierce sword light flashed like a gorgeous rainbow, and when it slashed towards his forehead, it slightly tilted to the side and sliced off a strand of his black hair. Hee, not bad. Again. The white-haired old man appeared to be in high spirits. When he saw that Xiaochen could last 3 breaths of time in the sea of lightning this time, he was delighted. Laughing heartily, he waited for Xiaochen to regain his footing before charging forward once more. Xiaochen knew that the old man had held back when he saw the wisp of hair falling from his forehead. He became even more interested in the sword light fiery shadow. Soon, the 20 moves were over. However, Xiaochen's lantern continued to float in the air, not showing any intention of falling. What's wrong with this fellow? He has already lasted for so long, and there is still no result. The surrounding crowd felt that something was wrong and asked suspiciously. However, Baiyu laughed loudly and said, "What's so strange about that? He must be flying around after getting killed, trying to delay for time." The crowd thought about it and felt that this was the only possibility. 20 moves would not take a long time. Unless Xiaochen knew that he was not a match for the white-haired old man, and used his movement technique to move around, not receiving any attacks. He said disdainfully, "If you are not capable, then so be it. To think that you are purposely delaying for time, not willing to admit defeat. So the geniuses of the Sky Dome realm are like this." The moment he said this, the many Sky Dome realm cultivators were dissatisfied. However, they were not strong enough. Even though they felt indignant, they did not dare to argue. When the two saw this, they could not help but feel even more cocky. They looked at the Sky Dome realm's people with extreme disdain. Yu Chenxi said through clenched teeth, "While people are proud, isn't it just because you are older than us by a few years?" Baiyu laughed loudly and said, "With your standards, if you train for another 10 years, I will be able to defeat you in 10 moves. I will be waiting for you to challenge me at Baiming Palace. However, I'm afraid that you do not have the guts. Junior brother, you overestimate her. I believe that she will not even be able to receive 1 move from you. She will never have the guts to go to Baiming Palace," Bai He said softly. After Bai He and Baiyu spoke, They both laughed at the same time, making Yu Chenxi furious. All of you shut up. The blue-clad youth behind Bai Shi suddenly shouted. His voice was cold and emotionless. When Bai Yu and Bai He thought of the blue-clad youth's methods, they were startled and shut their mouths. Bai Jian. He is one of the people on the proud son of heaven ranking, second only to the 7 giants. Unexpectedly, he is the one leading Baiming Palace's people to charge into the ranking. Earlier, the blue-clad youth had stood there with an extraordinary air. However, he had his own methods that prevented everyone from noticing him. Now that the blue-clad youth spoke, everyone discovered that he had been standing there for a long time. The blue-clad youth nodded to Old Feng in apology. Then he pulled Bai Yu and Bai He behind him. Are the two of you idiots? The old men behind them are inner sect elders of the 9 ranks of the great families. They can squash you to death with one hand. I don't care about you, but don't drag the Baiming Palace into this. When the two heard Bai Jian's reprimand, they lowered their heads, not daring to argue. The lantern was still floating before everyone's eyes, swaying back and forth without any intention of stopping. Soon, some people started to get impatient and started to complain. Bai Yu and Bai He lined up behind Xiao Chen. They were even more impatient, cursing at Xiao Chen's lantern. Sea of lightning, saber light. On the lantern, Xiao Chen shouted ferociously and swung the lunar shadow saber 21 times. Each saber strike materialized a dazzling electric light. When combined, it was like a roaring sea of lightning. Compared to the white-haired old man's sea of lightning saber light, Xiao Chen's sea of lightning saber light was only slightly lacking in nimbleness. Over time, it would be similar. Bang! The sea of lightning and the sea of fire clashed and exploded into surging shock waves. The instant the sea of fire scattered, the hidden sabers and swords disappeared in a flash. The two figures crossed each other in the air. When the sabers and swords clashed, sparks flew out. The sword chi and saber chi turned into ripples, creating boundless ripples in space. Haha. Not bad. You have finally scratched the surface of my flaming shadow chop. When this move is truly executed, you can send out 99,000 sword images. The will of fire will spread for 500 kilometers around. The sword in the fire can even split the sky in half. Today, I have exchanged 100 moves with you. I am afraid that for the next 100 years, I will not be able to test the newcomers. However, I have no regrets in passing down this move. In the future, when you are strong enough, remember to leave your will on this sage wall as well. After the white-haired old man spoke, he turned into a beam of light and scattered. Among the many sage wall paintings, the one belonging to the old man slowly dimmed. However, no one noticed this. Everyone's attention was focused on Xiao Chen's lantern. As it finally stopped floating and slowly descended, Bai Yu immediately cursed. Damn it! I already said it long ago. If you are not capable, don't drag this out. No matter how long you drag, you will not be able to change the result of failure. It is my turn now. Xiao. However, before Bai Yu could finish speaking, that lantern descended to the bottom row of the proud son of heaven ranking. Then it quickly flew to the last lantern. Bai Yu's expression suddenly changed. He was stunned for a while before he exclaimed, "That's impossible. How did this fellow pass the test? Wasn't he clearly being chased?" The others were shocked as well. They could not figure out what had happened. However, no matter what, Xiao Chen had passed the test and was preparing to challenge the last rank. This truly happened before everyone's eyes. No one could change it. The eyes of the many young cultivators of the Sky Dome realm could not help but light up, feeling encouraged. He patted Bai Yu's shoulder and said, "It's fine. Even if he passed the test by luck, he will not be able to truly succeed. We have been able to easily clear the sage's test since many years ago." Bai Yu recovered his wits and said, "That's right. This fellow comes from the last-ranked Sky Dome realm. How could he succeed on his first try?" Xiao Chen's lantern clashed with the last lantern, giving off a melodious sound. That fiery figure gently leaped up and landed on the last lantern. The world above the lantern was a vast, desolate land. A black-clad man sat cross-legged in the center with his eyes closed. A sword was stabbed into the ground beside him. When that figure sensed Xiao Chen's arrival, he suddenly opened his eyes. His gaze turned cold as he glared at Xiao Chun with a surging murderous intent. Kill. That person did not say anything. He held his sword and leaped up, thrusting it at Xiao Chun. The sword light was dazzling and dense. Not a single bit of quintessence leaked out. The fiery figure left in the lantern imitated the main body. It was no different from a cultivator. It had intelligence and could think. It just could not leave the lantern. Earlier, this person had quickly defeated Bai Qi and Xianyuan Zhantian. Xiao Chun did not dare to be careless, so he did not clash head-on. Xiao Chun pushed off with his feet, and a blue dragon image appeared. A dragon roared and his figure flashed, dodging this sword strike. Xiao! 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 As Xiao Chun dodged continuously, the black-clad man's moves became increasingly vicious. He was like a venomous snake biting Xiao Chun, not letting go. After another 100 moves, Xiao Chun had a rough idea. This person was about as strong as Wan Feng. At best, he was slightly stronger. Xiao Chun stopped and placed his right hand on his saber hilt. He muttered to himself, "In that case, there is no need for me to continue playing." Seeing that Xiao Chun stopped dodging, the black-clad man revealed a cruel smile. He thought that Xiao Chun had exhausted his stamina and was waiting for him to kill him. Sea of Lightning Saber Light. However, to the black-clad man's surprise, Xiao Chun suddenly made a move. Saber lights danced around. Xiao Chun swung his saber 7 times. Then, each saber light split into 3, turning into 21 saber images. Child's play. The black-clad man smiled coldly. His sword light flickered, and he caught all 21 saber images. Boom. However, just at this moment, the electricity on the 21 saber images merged and formed a sea of lightning. Then, it erupted and surged with the might of thunder. Caught off guard, the black-clad man was blasted by this sea of lightning. He went flying back, his body riddled with wounds. Before the black-clad man could stabilize himself and check his injuries, he saw a flash of light in the sea of lightning. A strand of saber light came out of nowhere. The saber light was as fast as a meteor. Blood spurted out of the black-clad man's neck, and his head separated from his body. With a cassier sound, the lantern below shattered into pieces. Only a fiery figure was left standing quietly in the air. Xiao Chun's lantern flew up. Xiao Chun's lantern ascended to the last position of the proud son of heaven ranking. When the flame died down, the lantern gave off a faint glow. The flame lingered for a long time. Chapter 647. Bai He and Bai Yu exchanged glances. The Sky Dome Realm Xiao Chun, whom they had always looked down on, actually succeeded in his challenge. Bai Yu said hatefully, "It must be luck. It must be that the last place is too weak." Bai He said, "It is definitely luck. If he really had the guts, he would have continued challenging." The Tianwu domain cultivators, who originally did not think highly of Xiao Chun, were mildly astonished. Xiao Chun succeeded on his first attempt. Furthermore, he was only 21 years old. This Xiao Chun's talent and comprehension ability could barely be considered an expert in the Tianwu domain. However, they were not overly shocked. This was because Xiao Chun had not truly ascended the ranking yet. He had to remain on the ranking for a month before he could truly obtain the reward of the Bushan Palace, the protection of the will of the predecessors. Xiao Chun was just the last place. The people in this position changed frequently. Every day, cultivators from all over would challenge him. There was no guarantee that he would be pushed down in the next moment. Unless Xiao Chun was strong enough to continue challenging and advance 100 ranks, he could be considered to have firmly ascended the ranking. Inside the lantern, Xiao Chun carefully felt that sea of lightning saber light earlier. He said softly, "A sword move is a sword move after all. It will take some time to change it into my own saber technique." Xiao Chun had sent out 21 saber images in succession. However, the other party had broken it too easily. The saber images that Xiao Chun sent out were not as natural and smooth as the white-haired old man's sword images. If Xiao Chun met with a powerful expert, the other party could attack very quickly and break the saber technique before the sea of lightning gathered. This was a rather obvious flaw. When I have time in the future, I have to think about it. Collecting his thoughts, Xiao Chun looked forward. After thinking for a while, He gave up on the idea of continuing to challenge. Given Xiao Chen's strength, advancing another 200 ranks should not be a problem. However, advancing any further would be somewhat difficult. To Xiao Chen, the last place and the last 200 were both at the bottom. There was no difference. There was nothing to be proud of. After all, Xiao Chen could challenge it once a year. When he was strong enough, he could charge into the top 100. With a thought, Xiao Chen severed his connection with the flame images in the lantern. Then he returned his focus to his body and said to Old Feng, "Senior, let's go." Old Feng smiled faintly. Indeed, Xiao Chen did not disappoint him. Although he only obtained the last rank, it was sufficient to prove himself. Old Feng smiled faintly. Indeed, Xiao Chen did not disappoint him. Although he only obtained the last rank, it was enough to prove himself. The haze on Baihe's face slowly disappeared, replaced by an expression of "as I expected." He smiled and said, "What did I say? I knew that you managed to get onto the list by luck. How about it? You no longer dare to continue challenging me, right? Watch as I personally chase you off. The people of the Sky Dome realm are not fit to remain on this proud son of heaven ranking." When Chen heard this, Xiao Fein Chen and said, "Up with him." Long Xiao Chen said, "Chen to Chen," and down on at it said. He led Xiao Chun Yu Chenxi and Gong Yang Yu out of the palace and headed for the Haotian sect's main sect. Damn it! For the sake of breaking into the proud son of heaven ranking, I prepared for 5 years. Now I am already a peak inferior grade martial monarch. I don't believe that I cannot compare to a trash from the Sky Dome realm like you. Damn it! For the sake of breaking into the ranking of martial monarchs, I prepared for 5 years. Now I am already a peak inferior grade martial monarch. I don't believe that I am not as good as trash from the Sky Dome realm. He only needed to endure 20 moves to clear the first stage of the Sage's test. He had already cleared it many years ago. Soon, he cleared this stage. Then, he quickly flew towards the lantern that Xiao Chen placed on it. Soon, he passed this test and quickly flew towards the lantern that Xiao Chen had placed above. He laughed maniacally on the lantern. Then, his flame image leaped up and landed on Xiao Chen's lantern. On the lantern, he laughed maniacally. Then, the flaming figure leaped up and landed on Xiao Chen's lantern. Cut! He just jumped up. And in less than the time of 3 breaths, his lantern shattered inch by inch, and his wisp of flame was smashed into pieces. He spat out a mouthful of blood. His face was extremely pale, and his eyes were filled with fear. They left quickly, but they failed even faster. They did not even have time to react, and did not know what had happened. Yu asked in confusion, "Junior brother, what's wrong?" "I lost." He was not willing to say much. The shock in his eyes had yet to fade completely. He walked behind Jian in a daze. Outside the proud son of heaven hall, Xiao Chen sensed that someone was fighting with his flame shadow clone in the lotus lantern. However, after leaving the hall, there was no strong mental connection, so he could not see the battle. "Forget it, I'll come back next year. At that time, I'll directly enter the top 100. Xiao Chen shook his head. He could not be bothered to worry about this matter anymore. He sped up to catch up with Elder Feng. Kacha. The next person to challenge the proud son of heaven ranking was Yu. He did not fare much better than Baihe. Like Baihe, he only lasted for a few breaths of time before being chased off. The surrounding cultivators preparing to challenge the proud son of heaven ranking all laughed to themselves. These two fellows had been shouting so loudly earlier. They did not care about the other party at all, swearing to chase Xiao Chen off. However, in the end, they did not even last 10 moves before being defeated. It looks like the people of Baiming Palace only know how to talk. They are useless when it comes to a real fight. A stout man from the rank 8 Frost Mist Pavilion laughed loudly. This made Yu and Baihe feel too ashamed to show their faces. They lowered their heads in silence. Ka. However, the result was only slightly better. After lasting for a while, his lantern shattered, and the wisp of flame vanished. He failed to break into the proud son of heaven ranking. He is clearly just a newcomer from the Sky Dome realm. How can he be so strong? The stout man revealed a horrified expression, his face filled with disbelief. Following that, The other new disciples of the various sects prepared to challenge the proud son of heaven ranking. However, without exception, all of them were blocked at the final stage. The rules of the proud son of heaven ranking stated that one could not challenge someone above one's rank. One had to move up one rank at a time. Otherwise, how could a newcomer challenge someone in the top 10 right after making his way onto the proud son of heaven ranking? As for Xiao Chun, he stood at the very end. He was like a gatekeeper, blocking the ambitious disciples of the various sects, who were preparing to make a name for themselves, from entering the proud son of heaven ranking. Under normal circumstances, the disciples who could definitely make it onto the proud son of heaven ranking were all forced to stop. Only at this moment did everyone's expressions change drastically. Their eyes were filled with incomparable shock. Unexpectedly, a newcomer from the Sky Dome realm had such strength. The blue-clad youth, by Jian, revealed a meaningful smile. He said indifferently, "Let's go back to Beiming Palace then. Senior brother, I have not made my way onto the proud son of heaven ranking yet," Bai Shi said as she held her lantern. "There is no need. Let's come back next year. That fellow might not understand the rules of the proud son of heaven ranking. He probably does not know what kind of commotion he caused." Bai Jian made it very clear. If Xiao Chun did not leave, Bai Shi would not have a chance to make it onto the proud son of heaven ranking. Since Bai Shi knew that he would fail, there was no need to seek humiliation. When Bai Yu and Bai He heard Bai Jian's words, they lowered their heads even more. They wished that they could find a hole to hide in. Today, the two of them had utterly embarrassed themselves. At the start, they had declared that Xiao Chun would definitely not make it onto the proud son of heaven ranking. However, not only did Xiao Chun successfully make it onto the proud son of heaven ranking, but he even stood at the very end, blocking all the people who came to make it onto the proud son of heaven ranking. Outside the proud son of heaven hall, a fiery red azure wand slowly descended from the sky. Two delicate girls descended nimbly. When the cultivators outside the proud son of heaven hall saw the pretty girl in a red dress on the right, they all stopped and looked over. Phoenix's Passion Palace's Nuan Muyun. It really is the Phoenix's Passion Palace's Nuan Muyun. She is probably here to bring a new disciple to make it onto the proud son of heaven ranking. The inheritors of the three holy lands occupied the top of the proud son of heaven ranking. For many years, no one had been able to shake their position. The ranking of the 7 giants of the Tianwu continent did not include these 3 people at all. This was because these 3 people were much stronger than the 7 giants. A person's reputation was like a tree's shadow. The moment Nuan Muyin appeared, her radiance attracted everyone's attention. Everyone unconsciously stopped what they were doing. Xiao. Just at this moment, a boat floated high in the sky, and 2 men slowly descended. One of them had an ordinary appearance, dark skin, short black hair, and a saber on his back. No matter how one looked at him, he looked extremely ordinary. Only his eyes shone with a pitch-black light. They were filled with a ferocious wildness, as if they possessed a boundless explosive power. The tyrant saber Wang Meng. Unexpectedly, one of the 7 giants, Wang Meng, is here as well. What a coincidence! Of the 7 giants, Wang Meng is the best at fighting and the most arrogant. Since the 2 of them brought their disciples to make a breakthrough, there will definitely be a fight. Given Wang Meng's character, he will definitely compete with Nuan Muyun to see whose disciple can make it higher. When the silent crowd saw Wang Meng's arrival, they immediately started discussing him. They seemed to be in high spirits. Nuan Muyun stopped and turned around. Wang Meng. There were not many people in the Tianwu domain who could make her stop. However, this tyrant saber Wang Meng was definitely one of them. Wang Meng smiled and said, "Nuan Muyun, are you bringing your disciples to make a breakthrough?" Nuan Muyun nodded gently. She already expected what the other party would say next. However, she did not fear it. The people she brought all had excellent aptitudes and comprehension abilities. Furthermore, after coming to the Kunlun realm from the Sky Dome realm and cultivating for 2 years, their cultivations were no weaker than the experts of the Kunlun realm. Wang Meng smiled and said, "I heard that the Phoenix's Passion Palace picked up a treasure from the last-ranked Sky Dome realm. How about it? Nuan Muyun, do you have the guts to compete with the junior brother I brought?" Nguyen Muyin smiled faintly and said to the girl in green beside her, Liusu, do you dare to compete? It turned out that this girl in green was the daughter of the previous pavilion master of the Heavenly Saber Pavilion, Lung Liusu. For Nguyen Muyin to personally bring her to make a breakthrough, the Phoenix's Passion Palace definitely valued her highly. I will do as elder sister Nguyen says. Lung Liusu's tone was calm, but there was no fear in her eyes. Nguyen Muyin smiled faintly and took out a brocade box with the flip of her hand. She said, since you want to compete, then I will accompany you to the end. However, since it is a competition, there should be some stakes. There is a monarch blood grass in this brocade box. It can refine a cultivator's blood chi and obtain a trace of an ancient sovereign's bloodline to strengthen one's physique. Wang Meng's eyes lit up. Then he laughed loudly and said, it looks like the monarch blood grass that you obtained with much difficulty in the savage battlefield will have a new owner today. Although my junior brother is only an inferior grade martial monarch, he has a rare fire spiritual body. Chapter 648. Enough nonsense. Wang Meng, take out your stake, Nguyen Muyin said in a deep voice, not afraid at all. Wang Meng also took out a jade bottle and said, there is half a drop of dragon marrow in here. It can also improve one's physique. It is no weaker than your monarch blood grass. If you win, it is yours. The stakes that the two took out were all rare treasures worth cities. The surrounding cultivators who were watching the excitement all had fiery gazes, feeling incredibly envious. Let's go and see who will win. A group of people followed behind Nguyen Muyin and Wang Meng as they headed for the proud son of Heaven Hall. Before the sage wall, the cultivators of the various sects of the Tianwu domain all looked at the last of the 1,000 lanterns. They all felt very depressed. As long as one was on the proud son of heaven ranking, one would be able to obtain benefits. It might be difficult for people like them to reach the top 800 or 900 in one go. However, there was a high chance of making it to the last 100. This was especially so for those who had prepared for many years and only wanted to show their faces on the proud son of heaven ranking. He didn't have any extravagant hopes for the rankings. He just wanted to stand there and feel a little satisfaction in his heart. But now this little bit of hope was mercilessly blocked by the last lantern, making him sad and dejected. Dong dong dong. The sound of footsteps could be heard coming from afar. When they gathered together, it was very noisy. From the sound, one could tell that at least 1,000 people had arrived. That's strange. Since when did so many people come to challenge the ranking? If one failed, the challenger would suffer serious mental and internal injuries. Under normal circumstances, no one would attempt the rankings unless they were absolutely sure of success. Those who wanted to challenge the roll of honor would have to think thrice before acting, and they would be extremely cautious. Those who came to challenge the roll of honor would definitely not swarm together. Everyone looked back curiously. When they saw the two people leading the group, they could not help but be startled. A moment later, their faces were filled with ecstasy. That's great, Nguyen Muyin and Wang Meng have brought people over to challenge the rankings. The people they brought with them are definitely not weak. It's even possible for them to reach the top 50. Nonsense. Not to mention the 9 ranks of the great families behind Wang Meng. Just the disciples of the Phoenix's Passion Palace alone would not be brought out, unless they could get into the top 100. Ha ha ha, no matter what, I will definitely be able to push this Xiaochen down. Fortunately, I had foresight and did not rush to make a move earlier. The group of people hurriedly moved aside, making way for Wang Meng and Nguyen Muyin. Especially those who were not in a hurry to make a move. Their faces were filled with excitement. Such a scene astonished the many cultivators that had followed Nguyen Muyin and Chu Feng. After asking around, Zhang Xian understood what had happened. When he looked at the final lantern, he was shocked. When Lung Liusu heard Xiao Chen's name, her body trembled. At first, she thought it was someone with the same name. However, when she looked at the lantern, she noticed that it was a lantern. The flame figure in the lantern quickly grew larger in her eyes. Finally, the white-robed Xiao Chen and Xiao Chen holding the lunar shadow saber appeared before her eyes. Only then did Lung Liusu confirm it. The shock in her heart could not be described with words. Unexpectedly, That young bladesman from back then also came to the Kunlun realm. Furthermore, he caused such a commotion in the proud son of heaven hall. Nguyen Muyun frowned slightly and asked, Liusu, do you know this person? Lung Liusu's eyes flickered. She had once heard rumors of Xiao Chen defeating several disciples of the Phoenix's Passion Palace in the outer sect. Afraid that Nguyen Muyun would bring trouble for Xiao Chen if she found out, Lung Liusu hid the truth. He seems to be a disciple of the Heavenly Saber Pavilion as well. The Heavenly Saber Pavilion's Xiao Chen. I have some impression of him. Lung Liusu could not help but find it strange that an insignificant person like Xiao Chen could attract senior sister Nguyen's attention. Nguyen Muyun smiled gently and said, I heard junior brother Mu mention him before. His younger brother was ruthlessly defeated by this person in the Sky Dome realm. If I am not wrong, that strand of saber chi from earlier should be from him. After Wang Meng understood what happened, he laughed loudly and said, Interesting. Unexpectedly, there is such a person in the Sky Dome realm. Very good. I like challenges that are difficult. Nguyen Muyun, are you going to chase that brat off first, or should I? A crafty look flashed in Nguyen Muyun's bright eyes. She smiled faintly and said, In that case, I'll let you go first. Wang Meng chuckled, and the fighting spirit in his eyes soared. He said loudly, In that case, it would be impolite to refuse. Ninth junior brother, chase that brat from the Sky Dome realm off. If he is not even as good as a lower realm disciple, he will be embarrassing the sect. Wang Meng's tone was filled with confidence. Wang Wei thought very highly of this ninth junior brother. At the very least, this ninth junior brother could charge up 100 ranks in one go. Taking down Xiao Chen would not be a problem. Wang Meng's ninth junior brother smiled proudly, and a faint flame appeared on his fist. He said, I swear I will not disappoint you. Fire spirit body. It looks like he has a fire spirit body that is at least 60% comprehended. Otherwise, he would not be so confident. With this, Xiao Chen will definitely be chased off. Upon seeing this scene, the surrounding people exclaimed in surprise. Several people saw hope and could not help rejoicing. Huqi. In less than the time it took to brew a pot of tea, the ninth junior brother's lantern easily cleared the sage's test before everyone's expectant gazes. The ninth junior brother's lantern knocked down Xiao Chen's lantern with a bang. Then he gently leaped up and landed on Xiao Chen's lantern. Time passed much slower than everyone expected. The ninth junior brother, who originally thought that he could suppress Xiao Chen, was still unable to end the battle even after 15 minutes. The cultivators who originally had fervent gazes filled with anticipation slowly showed conflicted expressions. After the time it took for half an incense to burn, the outcome of the battle was still undecided. Even the calm Wang Meng could not help but frown. Kassier. Suddenly, a crisp shattering sound rang out in the silent plaza. Wang Meng relaxed his frown and smiled. The victor is decided. However, when Wang Meng looked carefully, he discovered that the shattered lantern actually belonged to his ninth junior brother. He had not expected such an ending, so he could not help but be flabbergasted. How can it be like this? The people who were filled with anticipation all sighed. Then they focused their gazes on Lung Liusu. Unexpectedly, Nguyen Muyun placed her right hand on Lung Liusu's shoulder, preventing her from making a breakthrough. There's no need. Liusu, come back next year. Nguyen Muyun's words shocked everyone. A person brought by a holy land to make a breakthrough actually gave up because of a lower realm genius. Wang Meng smiled coldly and said, Nguyen Muyun, what do you mean by this? Nguyen Muyun faced the many paintings of sages on the wall and said, Take a look for yourself. Wang Meng looked in the direction of Nguyen Muyun's finger and saw that one of the paintings had dimmed significantly. If Nguyen Muyun had not pointed it out, it would not have attracted anyone's attention. This is. A sage is personally guiding Xiao Chen in his martial technique. Wang Meng cried out hoarsely, startled. Normally, only cultivators with high comprehension ability would attract the attention of sages, causing them to exhaust their will to guide them. There would not be more than 20 such people in the entire proud son of heaven ranking. Now there was one more, Xiao Chen. No wonder Xiao Chen spent so much time in the sage's test. So that is why. We were really stupid at that time. We actually believed what Bai He and Bai Yu said. that Xiaochun was being chased by a sage and was running around to buy time. Fuck, those two guys are idiots. They made us idiots for once. Everyone suddenly understood. They finally understood everything. They could not help but curse themselves for being too stupid. Then they cursed Bai He and Bai Yu. In the distance, White Feather and White River, who were rushing back, sneezed continuously. They looked at each other and felt that this was very strange. Ah, damn it. This is really strange. Why are there so many sneezes today? Bai Yu said depressedly. After he said that, he sneezed again. Bai He said in a low voice, "It can't be. Hundreds of people are scolding us for being stupid, right? We will be fools. What a joke. Then no one in the world would be smart." Wang Ming looked at Nguyen Muyin unhappily. She probably saw the dim sage portrait long ago and purposely let Wang Ming take the bait. "Let's go. We will come back next year." Wang Ming withdrew his gaze and left without looking back. Nguyen Muyin called out to the two. "Wait a moment." Wang Ming felt depressed in his heart. He asked unhappily, "Nguyen Muyin, is there anything else?" "Haha. It's fine. If you admit your defeat, you will not go back on your word, right? Hand over that half drop of dragon marrow." Nguyen Muyin said rudely as she stretched out her hand. "What a joke. I did not lose to you. Why should I give it to you?" Nguyen Muyin smiled faintly and said, "Both of us lost. According to the bet, we have to put up a good wager. Hand over the dragon marrow. I will get someone to send it to Xiaochun, along with the monarch bloodgrass." Nguyen Muyin's tone was calm, but the look in her eyes deterred anyone from doubting her determination. Wang Ming was extremely upset. However, although he was arrogant, he had his own targets. When he faced the other giants, he would have left long ago, ignoring them. However, when he faced the Phoenix's Passion Palace's holy daughter, Nguyen Muyin, no matter how frustrated he was, he did not dare to go against her decision. Wang Ming could only hand over the half drop of dragon marrow to Nguyen Muyin and leave. Filled with rage. Today he had embarrassed himself and lost money. It was all that brat Xiaochun's doing. Wang Ming thought to himself, "I have to get back at him for this." Nguyen Muyin and Wang Ming were the Phoenix's Passion Palace's holy daughter, and the most arrogant tyrant saber of the 7 giants. In the Tianwu domain, they were the focus of attention, the dazzling peak geniuses. This was especially so for Nguyen Muyin. Her lantern had already been in the second row of the pyramid for a long time. Unexpectedly, the disciple that these two brought actually lost to Xiaochun, a Sky Dome realm cultivator that the outside world did not think highly of, when he tried to break into the proud Son of Heaven ranking. Before this, there was the luck bearer of the 10 great battle realms. On his first attempt, he swept through more than 200 people. Now there is this Xiaochun. The Tianwu domain is probably going to undergo a complete transformation. The age of cultivators is not limited to the great 1,000 realms controlled by the Bushan Palace. In the past few years, our Tianwu domain has seen many new young experts as well. The top 100 of the proud Son of Heaven ranking has not changed much for a long time already. I guess that in less than a year, with the growth of these lower realm geniuses, there will definitely be a big change in the rankings. Chapter 649. After Nguyen Muyin and Wang Ming left, the crowd slowly became more talkative. They no longer held back when they spoke. As for the main character of this matter, Xiaochun, he was on a warship. However, he did not know anything about this. He could only vaguely sense that his lantern had been challenged by many cultivators. However, none of them succeeded. Xiaochun was still on the proud Son of Heaven ranking. At this moment, Xiaochun no longer cared about this matter. He focused all his attention on the Haotian sect, which he was about to reach. He wanted to see what the Haotian sect was like. White clouds flew by in front of Xiaochun. A gentle breeze blew, and the faint mist in the sky carried traces of spiritual energy. When one opened their mouth and inhaled, they felt refreshed and comfortable. With such dense spiritual energy, it would be hard for the cultivators of the Kunlun realm not to be stronger than the people of the lower realms. In front is the Haotian province, where the Haotian sect is. Old Feng, who was at the bow of the warship, pointed to the front as they crossed a wide river. The Haotian province was one of the few large provinces of the Tianwu domain. It was much larger than the great Jin nation of the Tianwu continent. There were countless cities in the province, and they were all under the jurisdiction of the Haotian sect. Not only that, but the Haotian sect's influence extended beyond the Haotian province. The surrounding smaller provinces would pay tribute to the Haotian sect every year. As for the Haotian sect, they provided them with military protection to prevent these provinces from being harassed by strong demonic beasts, loose cultivators, or high-ranked demons coming out of cracks in the demonic world. At first, when Xiao Chun and the others heard Old Feng's explanation, they felt it was strange. They had not expected the Tianwu domain, which was like a fairyland, to be so dangerous. After hearing Old Feng's explanation, they felt relieved. Some strong demonic beasts were as strong as superior-grade martial sages. The provinces without high-ranked sects would find it hard to defend against these spirit beasts, even if they sent out all their forces. Occasionally, ferocious beasts would pass through the Tianwu domain, resulting in the entire province being slaughtered. On the other hand, rogue cultivators were even more dangerous. These rogue cultivators were unrestrained and only thought about how to strengthen themselves. They did things without any scruples. Their minds were already twisted. The things they did were even crueler than demonic beasts, worse than beasts. As for rifts to the devil world, they rarely appeared. However, when they did, they were a rare disaster. Even the prefectures presided over by rank 8 sects would be destroyed. The warship moved very fast. After passing many cities, it arrived at a place surrounded by mountains. The mountains rose and fell, towering into the clouds. The green shadows of the mountains were lush and verdant. Clouds and mist curled around the peaks of the mountains, and the dense spiritual energy of heaven and earth assaulted one's face. The fatigue in their eyes was swept away, and they felt refreshed. So many spirit veins. There are at least 20 rank 3 spirit veins in this mountain. There are countless rank 2 spirit veins and rank 1 spirit veins. There are also a few supreme spirit veins. So many spirit veins. There are at least 20 rank 3 spirit veins, countless rank 2 spirit veins, and countless rank 1 spirit veins. There seems to be a few peak spirit veins as well. Xiao Chun had heard Ao Jiao explain spirit veins in detail before. Rank 1 spirit veins could not produce spirit stones, rank 2 spirit veins could only produce inferior grade spirit stones, and rank 3 spirit veins could only produce medial grade spirit stones. Xiao Chun took a cursory glance at the undulating mountains, and could feel many spirit veins running through them. As the spirit veins intertwined, the spiritual energy of the world surged endlessly. It felt like one was bathing in a sea of spiritual energy. The warship continued forward. Suddenly, a vast and majestic city appeared in the mountains. The mountain peaks in front were like towering gates opening one by one. Then, that city suddenly appeared, giving off a breathtaking feeling of the fog scattering and flowers blooming. The city was very large. Logically speaking, there should not be such a large empty space in such a densely packed mountain range. It was as if an almighty being was playing with a sandbox, gently pinching the mountains that were supposed to be there, and placing them somewhere else with a flick of his fingers. When Old Feng saw that vast city, his eyes filled with sorrow. Ever since he went to the Sky Dome realm, he had not returned to this place for 100 years already. Later, someone will bring you to meet up with the people of the other branch sections. After settling your matters, I will have to rush back to the Sky Dome realm. Old Feng's mood was somewhat heavy. As he looked at Yu Chenxi, it was especially so. Chenxi, there are some things that Martial Uncle has to tell you in advance. If nothing unexpected happens, you and Gong Yangyu will not be placed in the inner sect. Yu Chenxi and Gong Yangyu nodded slightly. Actually, they had already guessed this along the way. Now that they had arrived in the Tianwu domain, their past glory had already lost much of its luster. Yu Chenxi said seriously, "Martial Uncle, don't worry. Even if we are placed in the outer sect, Chenxi will persevere and not embarrass Martial Uncle." Old Feng nodded with a smile. Then he looked at Xiao Chun and said, "Xiao Chun, you will definitely be placed in the inner sect. Those people look down on the geniuses of the Sky Dome realm. However, I believe that in less than 3 years, you will definitely be able to obtain the position of a true inheritor. However, you are too sharp, too sharp. It is best for you to keep a low profile for the next 3 years. Although a man does not take revenge, it is never too late for a gentleman to take revenge. When Xiaochen heard this, he could not help but smile bitterly to himself. He had never thought of purposely causing trouble. Furthermore, he had never considered himself a gentleman. A gentleman was determined by others. However, Xiaochen only respected his own principles. What did the opinions of unrelated people have to do with him? However, after Old Feng left, they would probably not be able to see each other again. Xiaochen would not refute him, so he nodded to indicate that he understood. Zhou. 2 young men flew over from the city gates. They wore the alternating blue and white robes of the Haotian sect. They appeared extremely proud. Although they were young, their cultivations were extremely deep. Even Xiaochen found them somewhat unfathomable, feeling some fear in his heart. When Old Feng landed on the bow of the warship, he asked the 4, "Are the few of you from the Sky Dome realm?" After Old Feng stepped forward and stated his identity, he left with one of them, quickly disappearing from everyone's sight. The one who remained introduced himself. "My family name is Chen Xiao. You can just call me Senior Brother Chen. This time, I am responsible for receiving all the newcomers. I will bring you to your lodgings first." After this person spoke, he turned his back to the 2 and took the lead. Yu Chenxi projected his voice and whispered to Xiaochen. "There are 3 golden threads embroidered on his chest. That is the mark of a true inheritor. No wonder his cultivation is so deep. It turns out that he is a true inheritor," Xiaochen thought to himself. After entering the city, the 3 could feel the majesty of this city. It was even vaster than the Tianwu continent's dragon ceiling city. The strangest thing was that there was a small city in the sky above the city. 18 inverted mountain peaks circled the city in the sky. Chen Xiao introduced from the front. The city in the middle is the inner city of the Haotian sect. Inner sect disciples can go there once a month. The 18 mountain peaks outside are the residences of the true inheritors. Each mountain peak has a rank 3 spirit veins origin. The true inheritors have absolute control over that rank 3 spirit vein. The moment Chen Xiao said that, Xiaochen and the other 2 could not help but feel shocked. In the lower realm, even a large sect could not control a rank 3 spirit vein. Unexpectedly, a true inheritor could do so here. Thinking about it, if one could use a rank 3 spirit vein's origin to cultivate, how fast would one's cultivation speed be? The 3's expressions were within Chen Zhao's expectations. He revealed some pride in his eyes as he smiled faintly. "Right now, half of the 18 mountain peaks are empty. All of you have a chance." Gong Yangyu immediately asked doubtfully, "Why is it half empty? Such a good resource is just sitting there, and not being used." Chen Xiao replied indifferently, "It is better to have nothing than to have something shoddy. If it does not meet the standard, it is better to leave it empty." "What standard is it? Why is it so strict?" Gong Yangyu muttered. However, Chen Xiao did not say anything more. He led the 3 around the city, giving them a simple introduction of the medicine refining hall, the business district, the auction house, and the like. The western part of the city is the area for outer sect disciples. The eastern part is the area for inner sect disciples. If outer sect disciples have nothing to do, it is best not to go there. Gong Yangyu asked curiously, "Why?" Chen Xiao replied calmly, "That place is a mix of good and bad people. There are many factions there. In the past few years, for the sake of meeting the standard of a true inheritor, the few peak people have been competing intensely. Several shady methods have appeared. If you really go there, be careful, or they might rob you of all your treasures." Xiaochen entered deep thought. From Chen Zhao's words, it was clear that the standard of a true inheritor was very strict. They had already used all sorts of methods, but half of the 18 mountain peaks were still empty. If the Haotian sect lacked talents, it was clear that the number of cultivators in the Haotian province was not the reason. After familiarizing themselves with the city's environment, Chen Xiao led the 3 to a large courtyard. He said, "Go in, there are still some people from the branch sects who have not arrived yet. When everyone is here, we will assign you to the inner sect or the outer sect." Xiao Chen took the lead and entered. When he looked around, he discovered that there were already many people in the courtyard. There were at least 100 men and women in total. Even the weakest among them was much stronger than Gong Yangyu. There were also a few strong auras that made Xiao Chen wary, not daring to be careless. There were no chairs in the courtyard, only some bare stone stools. Xiao Chen casually found one and sat down. As they sized up the others, several people in the courtyard opened their eyes and started to size up Xiao Chen's group as well. When they saw the words Sky Dome on their identity medallions, they withdrew their gazes. They revealed disdainful expressions and no longer paid any attention to the three. Suddenly, Xiao Chen narrowed his eyes and looked at a skinny, effeminate man. In that instant earlier, that person seemed to have sent out some hidden energy. This person's technique was very ingenious, not causing any fluctuations in space. However, the hidden energy was not directed at Xiao Chen, so he did not bother with it. Bang! Just at this moment, there was a shattering sound. Xiao Chen opened his eyes and saw that Gong Yangyu had just leaped up, preparing to sit on the stone stool in front of him. In the end, the moment Gong Yangyu touched it, the hard stone stool shattered. Caught off guard, Gong Yangyu fell to the ground with a plop. Ha ha ha. The Sky Dome realm truly lives up to its reputation as a last-ranked sect. The people who come do not even know how to sit. When the skinny man saw the situation, he laughed loudly. Chapter 650. The other young cultivators, who were resting with their eyes closed, opened their eyes. They all revealed faint mockery on their faces. Everyone here would become competitors sooner or later. Thus, no one said anything to stop the situation from developing. Instead, they just waited and watched. Gong Yangyu's complexion alternated between green and red. He was clearly embarrassed. Rage burned in his heart as he stood up and swung his staff at the skinny man. Why are you so angry? We have been waiting here for a few days. It is already too boring. We are just having some fun. The skinny man did not panic at all. He just sat there cross-legged. He gently blocked the descending staff with his hand and used a skillful technique to deflect Gong Yangyu's force. Gong Yangyu's momentum was ferocious. However, he did not gain any advantage. Instead, he was easily knocked back dozens of meters. Gong Yangyu shouted and executed everlasting heaven and earth. He took 7 steps, and the 7 afterimages merged together. Immediately, the wind howled and the staff moved like a mountain. The skinny man smiled coldly and suddenly stood up. All the quintessence in his body surged as he quickly sent out 3 palm strikes. As the skinny man moved his hands, he moved his feet, slowly dissipating the force of the staff. Then he sent out a 3rd palm strike. Bang! Gong Yangyu vomited a mouthful of blood and went flying back. The skinny man's technique for dissipating the force was very exquisite, flabbergasting everyone. Unexpectedly, the stone stool under his feet did not shatter. The force of the staff spread to the ground, creating many tiny cracks that densely covered the ground. The skinny man mocked. It is just a game. Why take it so seriously? You are asking for trouble. To think that you actually dare to attack me. The skinny man's gaze turned cold. Unexpectedly, he did not intend to let Gong Yangyu off. He leaped into the air and kicked at Gong Yangyu. Xiao! Just at this moment, a dazzling saber light flashed. A sharp killing intent accompanied by a strand of purple saber chi flew at the skinny man. Everywhere the saber chi passed, the surrounding space rippled like waves. As the ripples spread out, they formed strong winds howling endlessly. The skinny man panicked for some reason. He quickly withdrew his leg and retreated, dodging that strand of saber chi. Kasi! After knocking back the skinny man with 1 saber strike, Xiao Chen sheathed his saber and did not make another move. Gong Yangyu stood up and walked over to Xiao Chen with a pale complexion. Then he thanked him softly. That skinny man stared at Xiao Chen for a long time. In the end, he still found Xiao Chen somewhat unfathomable, so he gave up on making a move. Xiao Chen's saber strike conformed to the norm. There was nothing too shocking about it, but there were also no major flaws. Aside from the skinny man who was in the same situation, no one else could feel how powerful it was. At this moment, Yu Chenxi and Gong Yangyu had extremely unsightly expressions. They had not expected to run into such a situation the moment they arrived at the Supreme Sky Sect. In the future, with his identity in the Sky Dome realm, no matter where he went, people would make things difficult for him. Xiao and would not. And would. And Xiao. Even though Zhang Xian wasn't doing anything at all, he still exerted immense pressure on everyone. This was especially so for a tall and sturdy man in front. His battle spirit was as ferocious as a raging fire. He was like a wild beast on fire. They are people from the battle realms. These people are definitely from the battle realms. Unexpectedly, there are people from the battle realms coming to our Haotian sect. The 10 great battle realms were famous. The geniuses from the battle realms were definitely not mediocre. The hearts of everyone present sank. In the future, they would probably have several more competitors. The 4 geniuses from the battle realms could not be bothered to take more than a few steps. The tall and sturdy man in front shouted at the person sitting on the nearest stone bench, "Scram! The 4 of you, quickly get up and give up your seats." The 4 people were stunned. Clearly, they had not expected to be scolded by these 4 people in front of everyone. They could not help but be put in a difficult position. You are seeking death. During this moment of hesitation, the 4 cultivators from the battle realms shouted ferociously and attacked at the same time. Vast palm energy surged out like a surging river. The palm energy surged out like a surging river. The 4 hurriedly got up to face the attack. In the end, they were no match for one palm strike. This was especially so for the man who got struck by the tall and sturdy man. That man was knocked out of the courtyard like a cannonball and landed on the streets of the city. What a fellow! The moment they disagree with each other, they start fighting. This is indeed in line with the character of the people from the battle realms. The others were startled, but they did not dare to say anything. The few truly strong people did not want to get involved with these 4, either. Everyone knew that the people of the battle realms were famous for being battle maniacs. When they started fighting, there would be no end to it. They had to determine a victor. Furthermore, these people all had the bloodline of the ancient giants flowing in their bodies. Their strength remained the same, and they did not hold back when they attacked. Even if these people were slightly stronger than the people from the battle realms, they would not be willing to fight with them. Ah, this little girl is rather pretty. Come and sit with me. At some point in time, the tall and sturdy man had fixed his gaze on Yu Chenxi. The tall and sturdy man laughed loudly and spread open the fingers of his huge right hand. A strong suction force immediately pulled Yu Chenxi into the air. The surging force was like an invisible black hole. When the tall and sturdy man suddenly attacked, Yu Chenxi cried out and left the ground. Xiao Qin's expression changed. He leaped up and gently landed a palm strike on Yu Chenxing's shoulder with his right hand. Then he clenched his left hand into a fist and sent out a fist wind. Rumble. The 2 forces clashed in the air, giving off heavy buzzing sounds. Sonic booms resounded and a strong wind blew in the courtyard, making everyone's hair flutter. Xiao Qin placed his right hand on Yu Chenxi's shoulder and pulled him behind him without anyone noticing. Then he said softly, "Stand behind me." When the tall and sturdy man saw Xiao Qin make a move, he did not show much displeasure in his eyes. Instead, a fervent, almost cruel light flashed in his eyes. The cultivators of the battle realms had 2 hobbies. One was women, and the other was fighting. Compared to women, fighting to one's heart's content was more interesting. This fellow is in trouble. That tall and sturdy man seems to be the number 2 genius of the 9th battle realm, Situ Gang. He is extremely strong. Once the cultivators of the battle realms target you, it will be very hard to shake them off. You either get killed by them or beat them to death. However, they beat most people to death. They are a bunch of madmen. Seeing that the tall and sturdy man targeted Xiao Qin, several people immediately revealed gloating expressions. This was especially so for that skinny man. A cold and cruel smile appeared in his eyes. Indeed, Situgang stood up and smiled coldly. Since you have the guts to block me, you should be prepared to die. Bang! Suddenly, a sonic boom resounded in the air. Situgang's figure flashed in the air and arrived before Xiao Qin. He did not use any fancy movement techniques, only extreme speed. Xiao Chen's expression remained calm as he sank his feet down. He circulated his vital qi quickly, and in the time it took for a spark to fly, he clashed with that punch. Bang! 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 Situgang pressed forward. After the first punch, he followed up with a second and a third. Every time he punched, an impassioned shout resounded in the surroundings. The shouts seemed to come from the distant ancient era. They sounded desolate and ancient, spreading a heavy aura. When the surrounding cultivators saw this, they felt astonished. If they received these 3 punches head-on, given their physical bodies, they would definitely suffer. The best way was to avoid the sharpness of the attack and use speed and skill-based martial techniques to deal with it. Someone sighed and said, "This fellow is really seeking death." Instead of dodging, he actually dares to clash head-on with a Battle Realm cultivator. When the skinny man heard this, he said in disdain, "He is probably too slow. How capable can the people from the Sky Dome realm be?" However, the surprising thing was that after Xiao Chun received 10 punches from Situgang, the entire courtyard trembled continuously before this huge force. However, Xiao Chun's footsteps did not move at all. He was like an old tree rooted to the ground, as firm as a rock as he dealt with the attacks calmly. After the 10 punches, Situgang saw that Xiao Chun was not in a sorry state as he expected. His expression turned serious as he pushed off the ground and landed back on the stone stool. Before that huge force, Xiao Chen's meridians, blood, and bones trembled continuously. However, that was all. Xiao Chen's body had first been tempered by the dragon and tiger body sculpting art. After cultivating the firmament body tempering art, his meridians, blood, and bones were tempered once more. His physical body was much stronger than that of regular cultivators. After circulating his energy, Xiao Chun digested the quintessence in his body. His gaze turned extremely cautious, not relaxing at all. Xiao Chun estimated that this Situgang had only used 30% of his strength at most. This was because the other party did not seem to be panting or needing to adjust his breathing after sending out 10 punches. Indeed, the people of the Battle Realms could not be underestimated. The expressions of the other branch sect disciples changed slightly. They looked at Xiao Chun, keeping an eye out for him. Initially, no one paid attention to Xiao Chun. Now he attracted some attention, gaining a sense of his existence. Chapter 651. Situgang, this fellow is a body-tempering cultivator. Use your true abilities. Otherwise, others will think that the people of the Battle Realms are only capable of this much. A Battle Realm cultivator behind Situgang shouted with blazing eyes. 10,000 meters in the air, the 2 true inheritors who had brought in Xiao Chun and the others earlier watched the situation below with interest. Chun Xiao smiled faintly and said indifferently, "Wang Chung, these people from the lower realms are more interesting than we thought." The youth called Wang Chung said sullenly, "I nearly misjudged this Xiao Chun. His cultivation is not high, but he also cultivates a body-tempering technique. His strength is not that simple." Chun Xiao looked around and said, "Senior brother Wang, what do you think of these geniuses from the lower realms? Do you think any of them can become true inheritors?" Wang Chung entered deep thought and said, "I noticed that at least 10 people have pretty good talent. This is especially so for that Battle Realm Situgang. His cultivation is so vast that no one here can compare to him. If he enters a berserk state, he will be even more horrifying. However, it is hard to say whether they can become true inheritors or not. Let's see if they can handle the competition between the inner sect's 5 big factions first." A disciple flew down from the floating inner city and landed beside the 2. After bowing respectfully, he handed over a document and said, "Senior brothers, the distribution of the inner and outer sect disciples that the elders discussed is already out." Chun Xiao received the document and said, "Unexpectedly, they discussed for so long. However, it is finally out. If we had waited any longer, we would have run out of patience." Wang Chung smiled gently and said, "That's normal. The treatment of the inner sect disciples and the outer sect disciples is very different. It is already beyond my expectations that they can come out so quickly." The 2 casually flipped through the document and slowly flew down to the courtyard. preparing to announce the contents of the document. At this moment, the atmosphere in the courtyard was extremely heavy. The fanaticism in Situgang's eyes turned into a blazing flame. His strong aura slowly soared. When everyone sensed it, they felt their hearts palpitate. They unknowingly took 2 steps back, afraid of getting caught up in the shockwaves of the battle. There were rumors of the destructive power of the people of the battle realms unleashing their true strength. No one was willing to suffer such a calamity. However, on the other side, Xiaochen did not show any intention of backing down. He gathered his aura. Even when facing a strong battle realm expert, he was neither servile nor overbearing, maintaining a calm expression. Wuxia. However, just as the intense battle was about to erupt, 2 vast auras suddenly appeared in the courtyard that tore through the clouds. It was as if an invisible ocean had suddenly crashed down, silently covering everything. Although Situgang's valiant and frightening aura was powerful, it was not worth mentioning in this vast ocean. Very quickly, it was submerged and disappeared without a trace. Everyone quickly looked over and saw that Chen Xiao and Wang Cheng were already standing on top of the wall. It's a true disciple. Someone immediately recognized who they were. Their gazes were filled with yearning. They were shocked by the strength they had displayed. Just by relying on their auras, they easily resolved the situation. Even someone as irascible as Situgang did not dare to lose his temper. Very good. At least you know your limits. Now I will announce which of you can enter the inner sect, and which will be assigned to the outer sect. When Chen Xiao saw that no one said anything, he nodded and spoke in a calm tone. When everyone heard this, they pricked up their ears. Outer sect and inner sect. There was only a difference of 1 word, but the treatment they received was as different as heaven and earth. Everyone hoped that they would be assigned to the inner sect. Everyone showed expressions of anticipation as they waited quietly. Wang Cheng, who was at the side, held the official document and said, "I will only read out the names of the people assigned to the inner sect. Those whose names are not read out are naturally outer sect disciples." As the names were read out one by one, several people revealed joyful smiles. As for those whose names were not read out, they waited anxiously. Xiaochen did not have to wait for long before he heard his name called. He relaxed slightly. As for Yu Chenxi and Gong Yangyu, they did not hear their names read out. Although they had expected this, they could not help but feel disappointed. I am not convinced. Why is he only an early-stage inferior grade martial monarch? Furthermore, he is a cultivator of the Sky Dome realm. He is directly sent to the inner sect. I am a peak inferior grade martial monarch, yet I still have to struggle in the outer sect. A long-faced cultivator whose name was not read out shouted as he pointed at Xiao Chun. The moment this cultivator said this, the people whose names were not read out felt dissatisfied and echoed his sentiments. There were always some people who felt that others were only SOSO, that they could not compare to them. Xiaochen did not find this strange. He could not be bothered with them, waiting to see how the 2 true inheritors would deal with this. Chen Xiao and Wang Qing did not seem surprised. Their gazes casually landed on the person who caused trouble first. This is not fair, absolutely not fair. I want to fight with him. I can prove that I am qualified to enter the inner sect. That long-faced cultivator jabbered on endlessly to Chen Xiao and Wang Cheng. Wang Cheng frowned slightly and pointed with his finger. A deep blue sword qi shot out from his fingertip. The sword qi was incredibly sharp. It ignored the long-faced cultivator's protective quintessence and directly tore a small hole in his chest. Without any warning, Wang Cheng attacked directly, mercilessly teaching this person a lesson. When the other people who agreed with the long-faced cultivator saw this scene, they immediately shut up. Why did you injure me? I did not do anything wrong. Are you all that great just because you are true inheritors? The long-faced cultivator asked as he held his chest in intense pain. Wang Qing did not say anything. Chen Xiao formed hand seals with both hands and formed a cage-like hand seal. Then he sent it at the long-faced cultivator. A light flickered, and the cage-like hand seal entered the long-faced cultivator's body. His aura vanished, and he became like an ordinary person. What's going on? Why can't I circulate my quintessence? The long-faced cultivator exclaimed in horror when he felt the situation in his body. Chen Xiao said expressionlessly, As true inheritors, we have the authority to enforce the rules. We can kill those who look down on the decisions of the Elders' Assembly. Since this is your first time in the Haotian sect, I will only punish you a little. I will seal your dantian for 1 month. Wang Cheng said. Outer sect disciples can take the test every once in a while. If you are strong enough, it would not be difficult for you to become an inner sect disciple. Seeing the two's strength, no one dared to say anything else. They all kept quiet. The two leaped off the wall, and Chen Xiao said, Inner sect disciples, follow me to the east of the city. Senior brother Wang will lead the outer sect disciples. The 100 or 200 people who came split into 2 groups and headed out of the courtyard. Just as they were about to leave, Yu Chenxi said sincerely, Senior brother Xiaochen, thank you for your help. Xiaochen had risked defending a battle realm genius to shield her. Yu Chenxi's gratitude to Xiaochen was indescribable. Xiaochen smiled faintly and said, You are my friend. If you are in trouble, how can I sit back and do nothing? I believe that you will definitely help me if I am in trouble. Work hard. I will look out for you in the inner sect. Given your talent, you will definitely regain your former pride. Yu Chenxi nodded heavily and said, I definitely will. The two waved goodbye. Gong Yangyu, who was at the side, said some words of thanks before leaving silently. Under Chen Zhao's lead, the group quickly headed to the east of the city. The east of the city was very large, but there was only one entrance. There were people guarding the entrance. When the disciples guarding the entrance saw Chen Xiao, they immediately bowed respectfully. Every month, you will receive 10,000 superior grade spirit stones and 10 inferior grade spirit gathering pearls. Every 7 days, an old senior of the sect will give you a lecture. However, you are not allowed to ask questions. If you ask in private, you will have to pay spirit stones. Chen Xiao first brought the group to register. After they received their inner sect identity medallions, he explained the treatment and sect rules that inner sect disciples enjoyed. 10,000 superior grade spirit stones, and 10 inferior grade spirit gathering pearls. Everyone could not help but reveal expressions of joy. None of the sects in the lower realms were able to enjoy such treatment. Furthermore, spirit gathering pearls were even rarer. They required a large number of martial sages to refine them by exhausting their cultivation. The teachings of an old senior would also enlighten them. Most true experts would not be so kind as to share their cultivation experiences with others. This is where you will be staying. Every 10 rooms will share a rank 1 spirit vein's origin. Every month, you will need to spend 10,000 superior grade spirit stones. Chen Xiao pointed at a row of simple residential areas and said slowly. When everyone heard the first half of what Xiaochen said, they all revealed excited expressions. In the lower realm, a rank 1 spirit vein's origin could support a large sect with tens of thousands of people. Here, 10 inner sect disciples could share one. However, when they heard the second half of what Xiaochen said, their faces immediately sank. They would only receive 10,000 superior grade spirit stones a month. Just the cost of their accommodation would be used up. If they wanted to cultivate, obtain medicinal pills, or go out exploring, they would not have any spirit stones left. You need spirit stones? That is too expensive. Chen Xiao ignored everyone's complaints. He continued, if you want to stay in a better place, you can pay an additional spirit stone and enjoy a spirit vein's origin to yourself. Furthermore, everyone will have to take on a mission from the sect at least once a month. However, you new disciples will have 1 month to familiarize yourselves. After that, Chen Xiao answered a few simple questions from the crowd. Then he took his leave. Before everyone's envious gazes, he flew to the floating mountain peak that belonged to him. The houses in the residential area were all adjacent to each other. Compared to the independent courtyard that Xiaochen lived in, the environment was much simpler. After tidying up the house, Xiaochen sat at the head of the bed and started to think about his cultivation goals. Chapter 652. After arriving in the Kunlun realm, where the spiritual energy was incredibly dense, Xiaochen's first goal was to refine his quintessence. There was no need to rush to break through to the next cultivation realm. He needed to be steady, slowly closing the gap between him and the native cultivators of the Tianwu domain in terms of the purity of his quintessence. If there was an opportunity, Xiaochen wanted to break through to the 7th layer of the Purple Thunder Divine Incantation as well. However, he could not rush this. The Purple Thunder Divine Incantation was even more mysterious than a heaven-ranked cultivation technique. The latter layers of the Purple Thunder Divine Incantation became increasingly difficult to advance. Xiaochen's second goal was to continue tempering his physical body, to cultivate the firmament body tempering art to the peak of the 6th layer, making his physical body even stronger. Not only was it excruciating to cultivate a body tempering cultivation technique, but it also required more and more heavenly treasures to support it with each level. Now that the firmament body tempering art had reached the 6th layer, the natural treasures that he could use would be worth cities. Given his current status, it would be difficult to buy them. Xiaochen's third goal was to comprehend the second move of the heaven-ranked dragon subduing / soaring dragon. With this, he would have a strong physical body and a refined cultivation. Naturally, he needed a martial technique that could bring out the greatest might of his accumulations. After sorting through these goals, Xiaochen could not help but feel a headache coming on. None of the 3 goals were easy to accomplish. Not only did they require a large number of spirit stones, but they also required a lot of time and a very high comprehension ability. The latter 2 were easy to accomplish, but the former was difficult. Everything in the inner sect required spirit stones. Although Xiaochen had some wealth now, he could not afford to spend them for a long time. Xiaochen shook his head and sighed gently. Never mind, I should refine my quintessence first. This does not require spirit stones, I just need time. Xiaochen shifted his gaze to a prayer mat on the floor of the room. Complicated formations were carved on the prayer mat, connecting it to a spirit origin deep underground. Sitting cross-legged on it, Xiaochen immediately sensed a rank 1 spirit origin the size of a human head in his sea of consciousness. It split into 10 strands and scattered outwards. Even though the vast and pure spirit origin was split into 10 strands, each strand was like a gushing river. Who knew how much spiritual energy it contained? He could feel that the other 9 people were absorbing the spiritual qi from the spiritual origin with great excitement to improve their cultivation. Xiaochen was not that excited or rash. Every time he absorbed some spiritual energy, he would immediately circulate the Purple Thunder Divine Incantation, continuously compressing it. When it was completely compressed to the point where it couldn't be compressed anymore, it was then inserted into the meridians. Above his dantian, of the 99 transparent true essence water droplets, one of them slowly turned purple. First it was a pale purple, then it turned deep purple. In the end, the purple water droplets became as smooth as pearls, as if they were solid. Given this, even after spending a lot of time, Xiaochen's cultivation did not increase. It looked like he was still an inferior grade martial monarch. Half a month later, out of the 99 drops of true essence liquid in Xiaochen's body, 30 of them had become as smooth as pearls, with a bright and beautiful luster. Dong dong dong. On this day, after he had rested as usual, just as he was about to refine his true essence, there was a series of knocks on the door. Xiaochen stood up from the prayer mat and casually waved his hand, sending out a clump of energy. The door opened with a gong ding sound. A yellow-clad man stood at the door. He was skinny and had an ordinary appearance. However, his cultivation was pretty good, late-stage inferior grade martial monarch. Unfortunately, it was not very dense. In Xiaochen's opinion, it seemed somewhat exaggerated. This person looked somewhat familiar to Xiaochen. He should be like Xiaochen from a lower realm's Haotian sect branch. Xiaochen had met him once in that courtyard. "This friend, do you have business with me?" Xiaochen asked as he stepped forward and invited this person in. Then he brewed a pot of tea. The yellow-clad man smiled and said, "I am Zhui Yusher from the Cloud Sea realm. I live next door to you. It is nothing major, so I just came to drop by. I wonder if I have interrupted your cultivation?" Of the 3,000 great realms controlled by the Bushan Palace, the Cloud Sea realm was one of the lower-ranked realms. It was not much better than the Sky Dome realm. Xiaochen recalled the information on the Cloud Sea realm. Then he picked up his teacup and took a sip. Smiling, he said, "It's fine. Coincidentally, I have been cultivating for half a month. It is good to find someone to chat with. Let me introduce myself. I am Xiaochen from the Sky Dome realm. When Zhui Yushi heard Xiaochen's words, shock appeared in his eyes. He said, You said that you have been cultivating bitterly in this room for the past half month. Xiaochen felt it was strange. He asked, What's wrong? Is there a problem? Zhui Yushi smiled embarrassedly and said, Brother Xiao is really different. In the past few days, none of us have been able to endure the loneliness. In the past half month, everyone has familiarized themselves with the eastern part of the city. Earth-ranked martial techniques, which are considered precious treasures in the lower realms, are everywhere here. As long as you have spirit stones, you can buy them. Furthermore, there are all sorts of medicinal pills for cultivation. There is a dazzling array of them, so many that one's eyes would be dazzled. The auction house in the inner city even auctions heaven-ranked martial techniques and cultivation techniques, as well as all sorts of superior-grade secret treasures. However, the amount of superior-grade spirit stones required is astronomical. Zhui Yushi was very talkative. Whenever Xiaochen spoke, Zhui Yushi would go on and on. This reminded Xiaochen of his old friend, Bai Lishi. The two of them were both chatterboxes. Although Zhui Yushi spoke a lot of nonsense, there were some things that Xiaochen was interested in Zhui Yushi's words. Xiaochen had not gone out for the past half month. Zhui Yushi's arrival came at a good time, so Xiaochen did not feel frustrated. That's right, Brother Zhua, let me say something. Your cultivation has grown rather fast. Have you never thought about the problem of the density of quintessence? The people chosen from the lower realms were the cream of the crop of the Great Thousand Realms. If Xiaochen could think of the problem of the density of quintessence, Zhui Yushi would definitely be able to. Zhui Yushi laughed loudly and said, Naturally, I have thought about it. However, there is no need to worry. When I reach the peak of the late stage, I will go to the medicinal hall in the inner city to buy a quintessence gathering pill. Quintessence gathering pill? What is that? Xiaochen frowned slightly. Zhui Yushi knew that Xiaochen had not gone out yet, so he explained the origins and uses of the quintessence gathering pill in detail. The spiritual energy of the Kunlun realm was too dense. Cultivators cultivated very quickly. For the sake of preventing unstable quintessence, alchemists created medicinal pills to compress spiritual energy. There was a corresponding medicinal pill for every rank of cultivator. The quintessence gathering pill was meant for martial monarchs. After consuming it once, quintessence would automatically condense. If one cultivated after that, their cultivation speed would be much slower. This was also why the cultivators of the Kunlun realm advanced at a slower pace. Consuming a medicinal pill was equivalent to cultivating twice in the same cultivation realm. Naturally, their quintessence would be much denser than that of lower realm cultivators. Suddenly, Zhui Yushi thought of something. He said, Brother Xiao, could it be that you have been refining quintessence on your own for the past half month? That would have been a waste of time. Xiaochen smiled bitterly. What did it mean to build a cart behind closed doors? This was the result of building a cart behind closed doors. If he had gone out, he would not have ended up like this. How many times can I consume the quintessence gathering pill within a cultivation realm? Xiaochen asked casually. Zhui Yushi replied. It can only be used once. After that, I can consume it again when I advance to medial grade martial monarch. In that case, it did not matter. If I refined it once and used the quintessence gathering pill again, my quintessence would definitely be stronger than others. However, that way my cultivation would grow even slower. Under such circumstances, it would be a test of a cultivator's mental state. One would have to spend more time and endure the unbearable loneliness of the world. One would have to not be blinded by the prosperity and vanity before them. It was hard for the younger generation to avoid being proud and arrogant. They liked to fight for fame and profit. It was already very rare for them to not be eager for quick success. It would be very difficult for them to spend more time to solidify their foundations. Xiaochen's heart was focused on the great Tao. His goal of reaching the peak of the martial Tao had never wavered. He clearly knew that the peak of the martial Tao was what he pursued. On the path to the peak, The fame and prosperity before him were just fleeting clouds. Sooner or later, they would vanish like smoke. Xiaochen continued to ask, "Do you know the price of this quintessence gathering pill?" When Xiaochen mentioned the price, Zhui Yushi immediately withdrew his smile. He sighed and said, "An inferior grade quintessence gathering pill costs 50,000 superior grade spirit stones. A medial grade quintessence gathering pill costs 100,000 superior grade spirit stones. A superior grade quintessence gathering pill costs 150,000 superior grade spirit stones." Damn it! Xiaochen could not help cursing in his heart. The price was really extraordinarily high. Right now, Xiaochen only had 200,000 superior grade spirit stones on him. If he bought a slightly better quintessence gathering pill, he would be penniless. Zhui Yushi smiled bitterly and said, "Don't get angry. This is still the preferential price for inner sect disciples. If you went elsewhere, it would be even more expensive. However, you don't have to worry too much. As inner sect disciples, we can take on missions with higher rewards. Tens of thousands of spirit stones are not as difficult to earn as you think." After chatting for a while, Zhui Yushi stood up and took his leave. He wanted to say something but hesitated. "Brother Xiaochen, in the future we should move around more. Cultivation is not just about cultivating bitterly. From what I've heard, the internal strife within the inner sect is extremely intense. Now there is a group of lower realm cultivators like us. Without an increase in resources, the fights in the inner sect will only be even more intense." Xiaochen stood up to send Zhui Yushi off. Zhui Yushi's final words made him enter deep thought. Sometimes, there were a lot of things that people wouldn't give you peace just because you wanted it. Only when one is strong can one feel at ease. Only when one is at ease can one feel at peace. Determination appeared in Xiaochen's eyes. Then he sat back down on the prayer mat and continued to refine his quintessence. As the sun rose and set, the world outside the house was filled with flowers and bustling with noise. There were newly advanced disciples who found strong backers and obtained the peak earth-ranked martial techniques that they dreamed of. Their combat prowess increased rapidly. There were even new disciples who bought quintessence gathering pills. The purity of their quintessence soared, immediately surpassing those of the same generation. There were also newly advanced disciples who went out on experiential training and obtained news of fortuitous encounters, making others even more envious. Situ Gang worked with 4 people from the battle realms and forcefully formed a large faction in the intense competition in the inner sect. Then they started to compete with the other 5 factions. That skinny man also gathered the remaining lower realm geniuses and formed a faction of his own, looking very awe-inspiring. There were also several peak lower realm geniuses who originally kept a low profile. After accumulating a certain amount of experience, they revealed their ferocity and beat up some of the older inner sect disciples to the point where they could not even raise their heads. Their fame soared. Zhui Yushi passed the news to Xiaochen. The world outside was extraordinarily bustling. Every time Zhui Yushi spoke of this news, his eyes filled with envy, and his bloodline surged restlessly. Chapter 653. Xiaochen smiled faintly at this and ignored them. He focused on refining his quintessence. More and more pearl-like purple liquid appeared in the 99 drops of transparent quintessence. Xiaochen's quintessence was much denser than before. After another 20 days, Xiaochen decided to go out. This time he had to. This was the first time the new disciples were collecting their stipends. It would be a waste not to take the 10,000 superior grade spirit stones and 10 inferior grade spirit gathering pearls. Zhui Yushi had been waiting outside the door for a long time. In the past month, whenever Zhui Yushi had nothing to do, he would look for Xiaochen to chat for a long time. They had become much more familiar with each other. "Let's go. Brother Xiao, I already asked around and found out where we can collect our stipends." Zhui Yushi appeared very excited. Although the spirit stones were going to be used for rent, the 10 spirit gathering pearls were extremely valuable. However, those 10 spirit gathering pearls were extremely valuable. If they were exchanged for superior grade spirit stones, one inferior grade spirit gathering pearl would be worth 5,000 superior grade spirit stones. However, As long as one was not in a rush to use spirit stones, no one would be foolish enough to use spirit-gathering pearls to exchange. After leaving the residential area, Zhuo Yushi led the way with great familiarity. They passed through a few bustling streets and corridors before arriving at a palace gate. There were many inner sect disciples here to collect their stipends. There was a long line. Xiaochen finally saw a few of them. These inner sect disciples were mostly late-stage inferior-grade martial monarchs. However, they were different from Zhuo Yushi. These inner sect disciples had very withdrawn auras and extremely dense quintessence. They were all late-stage inferior-grade martial monarchs. If Zhuo Yushi fought with them, he would not be able to last more than 10 moves. If Xiaochen guessed right, these people should have consumed a quintessence-gathering pill and cultivated back to peak inferior-grade martial monarch. Aside from this, Xiaochen also discovered something else. Some people received more stipends, while others received less stipends. The inner sect disciple who collected the most received 100,000 superior-grade spirit stones and 50 inferior-grade spirit-gathering pearls in one go. Xiaochen asked Zhuo Yushi, who was behind him, "What's going on with those people?" Zhuo Yushi explained, "Those are the inner disciples who are ranked higher on this month's contribution ranking. They completed many missions for the sect and received additional rewards. By the way, speaking of this, we have to accept a mission this month. If we don't accept it, we'll be expelled from the inner sect." The Haotian province was vast, and there were countless cities within the province. There were many merchant guilds, clans, and city lord residences. When they encountered problems that they couldn't resolve, they would request for help from the Haotian sect. The Haotian sect was also happy to accept the mission. Firstly, it could maintain the stability of the prefecture, and secondly, it could train the disciples of the sect. There were also some missions that were issued by the direct disciples, elders, and deacons of the sect. They encountered some matters that they couldn't find the time to resolve. They would also issue it as a mission and hand it over to the disciples of the sect to complete it. They only needed to pay a small amount of compensation. Zhuo Yushi said, "Not only can you obtain mission rewards by completing missions, but you can also obtain contribution points and additional rewards when you receive your stipend. It can be considered the greatest source of wealth for inner sect disciples. However, the rewards and contribution points of missions are linked to the risks involved. There are often rumors of disciples never returning after they accepted a mission." As they spoke, it was soon the turn of the two to receive their stipend. The process was very simple. They just needed to hand over their inner sect disciple identity medallions and let the other party verify it. Zhuo Yushi did not have a rich family background. When he received the 10 spirit-gathering pearls, he had an excited expression on his face. He held up the spirit-gathering pearls and said, "This is great. I finally have the money to buy the quintessence-gathering pill." Xiaochen felt it was strange. He asked, "Why are you exchanging for spirit-gathering pearls for no reason?" Inner sect disciples could use a tenth of their rank 1 spirit origin to cultivate. Under such conditions, the effects of superior-grade spirit stones on cultivation were much weaker. They could only be used when one went out. Normally, they could only be used as currency. They were not as valuable as they were in the lower realm. However, spirit-gathering pearls were different. Not only could they help in breaking through, but they were also faster than using spirit origin to cultivate. Of course, the prerequisite was that one had sufficient spirit-gathering pearls. Zhuo Yushi smiled bitterly and said, "I don't want to either. However, I should be able to advance to peak inferior grade martial monarch before the end of the month. I will need to use the quintessence gathering pill." Xiaochen felt relieved. He had obtained 200,000 superior grade spirit stones by killing several veteran martial monarchs in the lower realm. Not everyone was like Xiaochen, daring to look down on those veteran martial monarchs in the lower realm after advancing to martial monarch. "Let's go. Let's not talk about this anymore. Let's go by the quintessence gathering pill. I will be entering closed-door cultivation after this," Zhuo Yushi said. The floating city in the sky was the inner city of the Haotian sect. Inner sect disciples had a chance to go there once a month. Rumor had it that there was a peak rank 4 spirit origin in the inner city. Not only did it cause the inner city to be covered in a spiritual fog all year round, but it also produced a large number of superior-grade spirit stones every year. Even if one did not use the spirit origin to cultivate in the city, the effects would be much better than the rooms of the inner sect disciples. After the two passed through the dense fog made of spiritual energy, they registered themselves at the city gates and successfully entered the inner city. Compared to the bustling Haotian city below, the atmosphere in the inner city was much calmer. The people on the streets rarely spoke loudly. Occasionally, one would see many strong disciples with unfathomable cultivations. No one dared to underestimate them. Zhuo Yushi had been to the inner city once last month. He was familiar with the places that sold medicinal pills in the city. Soon, he led Xiaochen to a herb store. When the store owner saw that there was business, he immediately greeted them warmly. He smiled and asked, "Two little brothers, what medicinal pills would you like to buy?" Zhuo Yushi said impatiently, "Give me an inferior-grade quintessence-gathering pill. I will use spirit-gathering pearls to buy it. Is that possible?" Yes, of course." A smile bloomed on the store owner's face. This was already a big deal in the first place. Furthermore, he could use spirit-gathering pearls to buy it. "Wait a moment." Xiaochen stopped the store owner. "I will pay for his quintessence-gathering pill. Also, give me a superior-grade quintessence-gathering pill." Zhuo Yushi exclaimed in shock. "Brother Xiaochen, don't look at me like that. I lent you the spirit stones first. You have to return them," Xiaochen said with a faint smile. Zhuo Yushi felt very excited. A spirit-gathering pearl was much more valuable than a superior-grade spirit stone. Furthermore, it was a very precious item. It was not something that could be obtained just because one wanted it. If not for the fact that Xiaochen needed a quintessence-gathering pill to advance to peak inferior-grade martial monarch, he would not exchange for a spirit-gathering pearl. "Thank you, Xiaochen. I will not say anything else. You are my friend for sure." Xie Shiwen patted Xiaochen's shoulder heavily. After handing over the spirit stones, Xiaochen compared the two quintessence-gathering pills. He discovered that there was no difference between the two except that the superior-grade quintessence-gathering pill had a deeper luster. The store owner smiled and explained, "Haha, little brother, there is not much difference between a superior-grade quintessence-gathering pill and an inferior-grade quintessence-gathering pill. However, if you cultivate an earth-grade cultivation technique, the effects of an inferior-grade quintessence-gathering pill will be greatly reduced. Under normal circumstances, a medial-grade quintessence-gathering pill is sufficient for most people. If you want to exchange now, you can." Xiaochen carefully put away the superior-grade quintessence-gathering pill and said, "There's no need. I just want the superior-grade quintessence-gathering pill." Xiaochen was not in a rush to leave the store. He asked about natural treasures and medicinal pills that could assist in cultivating the firmament body tempering art. "This is the blood refinement pill. It is worth 400,000 superior-grade spirit stones. It can be used to refine a cultivator's blood. It has excellent effects when used to supplement a body tempering cultivation technique. This is the spirit freezing pill. It can reduce the pain when cultivating a body tempering cultivation technique. It is worth 100,000 superior-grade spirit stones. This is the yellow spirit flower. It is a rare natural treasure that can penetrate deep into the marrow. It is worth 500,000 superior-grade spirit stones." The cultivation of a body-tempering cultivator required a large number of natural treasures. When the store owner saw Xiaochen asking about these medicinal pills, he immediately introduced them with a fervent expression. It seemed like countless spirit stones moved in his eyes. There were many good things. Xiaochen felt envious. However, he was too shy and could only watch. Under the disappointed gaze of the store owner, the two left the store and rushed back. 1 hour later, the two finished paying the rent for the month. Just as they were about to return to their rooms and enter closed-door cultivation, a group of uninvited guests blocked their way. "Hee. I have been waiting for the two of you for a long time. You are finally back." The skinny man in front, who had injured Gong Yangyu, led a group of people and blocked the two. Zhuo Yushi's expression changed slightly. He said in a low voice, "That person is Gui Wu, one of the leaders of the two new factions in the inner sect. He is probably not here with good intentions. It turned out that this person's name was Gui Wu. After not seeing him for a month, this person's cultivation had not changed. However, his quintessence was several times denser than before. Compared to the experienced inner sect disciples that Xiao Chun had seen, Gui Wu was no weaker. In fact, he was even stronger. Xiao Chun looked at the other party and said calmly, "If you have something to say, just say it. Don't block the way." Gui Wu smiled coldly and said, "In that case, I'll say it. Each of you, hand over 5 spirit-gathering pearls." Right after Gui Wu spoke, the 6 people around him immediately released their auras and locked down on the 2. Although these people's cultivations were not as high as Gui Wu's, their quintessence was still very dense. They had probably consumed the quintessence gathering pill before. Their strength could not be underestimated. Xiao Chun remained silent. He only quickly evaluated the strength of both sides in his heart. Gui Wu had consumed the quintessence gathering pill and cultivated back to peak inferior grade martial monarch. Of the 99 drops of liquid quintessence, Xiao Chun had refined only 66 of them. He had not consumed the quintessence gathering pill yet. In terms of quintessence purity, Gui Wu was currently stronger than Xiao Chun. As for martial techniques and combat techniques, Xiao Chun did not fear Gui Wu. If they fought Gui Wu now, Xiao Chun should have at least a 50% chance of victory. This was not a high chance. Furthermore, the other party clearly came prepared. Adding in the group of people around Gui Wu, if they attacked together, Xiao Chun and Zhuo Yushi would not have much of a chance. Perhaps Xiao Chun and Zhuo Yushi could retreat easily. However, they would not be able to avoid the harassment of these people, which would affect their cultivation. Zhuo Yushi felt furious in his heart. However, when he saw the other party's strength, he felt helpless. If Gui Wu did not hand over the spirit-gathering pearls, it would be hard to avoid physical pain. In the future, Gui Wu would continue to seek trouble. Gui Wu laughed loudly and received the 5 inferior grade spirit-gathering pearls from Zhuo Yushi. Then he looked at Xiao Chun and asked, "What about you?" Xiao Chun flicked his finger, and the 5 spirit-gathering pearls flew in an arc towards Gui Wu. Gui Wu stretched out his hand and easily caught the 5 spirit-gathering pearls. He was somewhat surprised. He had not expected Xiao Chun to agree so easily. Chapter 654. Back then, when Gui Wu saw Xiao Chun make a move in the courtyard, he had thought that Xiao Chun would be the toughest bone to chew. So he had made a lot of preparations. After handing over the inferior grade spirit-gathering pearls, Xiao Chun walked forward expressionlessly, not saying a word. The person beside Gui Wu smiled and said, "Big brother, this brat is not as mysterious as you say. How can someone from the Sky Dome realm be that powerful?" Gui Wu weighed the spirit-gathering pearls in his hand and said in a cold voice, "At least he is sensible. I happen to lack one person for me to make an example out of." After that, he turned his head and asked, "How many inferior grade spirit-gathering pearls did we collect?" Someone immediately calculated and said excitedly, "There are 100 people in this residential area that we control. That's a total of 500 spirit-gathering pearls." When Gui Wu heard this, he shook his head and said, "That is still too little. The original 5 big factions controlled at least 300 or 400 people in this residential area. That group of blockheads from the battle realm controlled more than 200 people. Of the 7 big factions, we are the weakest. We have to be more ruthless next month. Everyone has to hand over 7 spirit-gathering pearls. Otherwise, we will be pushed out sooner or later." In the wooden hut that Xiao Chun was in, Zhuo Yushi said with some joy, "Xiao Chun, it is fortunate that you did not make a move on them. Otherwise, the consequences would be dire." "What do you mean?" Xiao Chun asked. Zhuo Yushi took a sip of tea and said, "Collecting spirit-gathering pearls from inner sect disciples has always existed. Previously, our residential area was under the control of the 5th-ranked inner sect disciple, Lan Feichen. Half a month ago, Gui Wu led a group of people to fight with him. No one knows the result. However, after that, Lan Feichen assigned our residential area to Gui Wu." Xiao Chun frowned slightly and said, Lan Feichen would not give him a portion for no reason. It looks like this Gui Wu is not simple. Zhui Yushi said. He has a strong backer. He is the grandson of the Spirit Sea Realm's Haotian sect master. I heard rumors that he brought millions of superior-grade spirit stones. After consuming the quintessence gathering pill, and consuming many natural treasures, he returned to peak inferior-grade martial monarch. After chatting for a while, Zhui Yushi took his leave. Only then did Xiao Chen reveal a murderous intent. My spirit gathering pearls are not that easy to obtain. My spirit gathering pearls are not that easy, Xiao Chen muttered to himself softly. With the earlier experience, Xiao Chen's speed of refining veritable essence energy became much faster. After that experience, Xiao Chen of Xiao Chun, his quintessence in Chen had. Chun Wu Xiao Chun Egg Xiao Chun and Kama Chen gathering, Chen Kama Chiu Kama Xiao Chen, of Chen of Geneva, Chun. Xiao Chen of Yu Chen of Tian of Chen of the Chen was by Yu. The saber chi was like lightning, disappearing in a flash. It silently pierced through a vase on the wooden table and the wall, heading out of the room. Xiao Chen stretched out his hand, and the vase landed in his grasp. The vase was made of porcelain. With just a gentle touch, it would shatter. If it were in the past, with Xiao Chen's strong quintessence, he would have crushed the vase into powder with just a strong wind. However, the saber chi of Xiao Chen's quintessence was not weakened at all. However, it only managed to create a flawless hole in the vase. If others were here and did not see Xiao Chen make a move, they would definitely think that there was a hole in the vase in the first place. Xiao Chen played with the vase for a while and smiled faintly. Then he waved his hand and returned the vase to its original position. The purity of my quintessence is probably no weaker than Gui Wu's after he consumed the quintessence gathering pill. When he ran into Gui Wu, Xiao Chen already had a 60% chance of victory. However, Gui Wu was not alone. He had 6 or 7 lower realm geniuses who were slightly weaker than him. Xiao Chen had to consume the quintessence gathering pill and refine his already extremely dense quintessence. Only then would he not fear being surrounded. Martial techniques had never been Xiao Chen's weakness. Be it the four-season saber technique that he comprehended, or the blue dragon returns to the sea, which he could already bring out 80% of. Xiao Chen was confident that he could defeat his opponents in martial techniques. All Xiao Chen lacked was accumulations of quintessence. Once he completely refined his quintessence, no one in inferior grade martial monarch would be a match for him. At that time, he could seek trouble for those people. Xiao Chen was not someone who would suffer losses. Since they took his spirit gathering pearls, they had to pay the price. Right now, Xiao Chen was still a middle stage inferior grade martial monarch. Using the quintessence gathering pill would be a waste. However, Xiao Chen still had more than 100 inferior grade spirit gathering pearls. As long as he was willing to part with them, he would be able to use them to advance to peak inferior grade martial monarch in a week. I have to cultivate slowly for now. There are still 5 more days to the end of the month. I should go and accept a sect mission first. Xiao Chen had to accept a sect mission. Otherwise, he would not be able to remain in the inner sect. This was a hard and fast rule of the Haotian sect. Xiao Chen did not dare to disobey it. When Xiao Chen passed by Zhui Yushi's house, he scanned it with his spiritual sense. The house was empty. Zhui Yushi was not there. Xiao Chen did not mind. He found someone and asked politely. Then he found out how to get to the mission hall. After 1 hour, Xiao Chen arrived at the mission hall. As the end of the month approached, there were many people in the mission hall. The place was very noisy. After waiting for a while, Xiao Chen finally arrived at the front desk. He received a mission list and started to look through it carefully. The missions were not separated into ranks. The missions with high rewards were all linked to high risk. Normally, no one would overestimate themselves and take on a mission that they could not complete. If one failed a mission, they would be punished accordingly. The higher the reward, the greater the punishment. With such a rule, it prevented people from taking on missions blindly. This is an escort mission. The city lord's residence of Haining City has to escort a batch of resources to pay tribute. It is not very dangerous. However, it takes a long time and the reward is low. There is also a mission to collect spirit beast materials. It was issued by an alchemist of our sect. The reward is very high. However, the rules are too strict. Not only do they have to ensure the completeness of the materials, but they also have to ensure the freshness of the materials. Who can do that? Xiaochen carefully searched for missions that were suitable for him. However, he discovered that he was not satisfied with any of them. Either the reward was low, or the conditions were too harsh. Hey, hunting loose cultivators? Xiaochen's eyes lit up as he pulled out a mission list. It described a city at the border of the Haotian province. Recently, a group of loose cultivators had arrived. They were all inferior-grade martial monarchs. They came and went like the wind. This group of loose cultivators had wiped out half of the 4 clans in the city. Not only did they sweep away all the accumulated wealth of the clans, but they also cut open their stomachs and killed everyone, regardless of age or gender. This caused everyone in the city to panic. The objective of the mission was to kill this group of loose cultivators and obtain 1,000 contribution points and 50,000 superior-grade spirit stones. Xiaochen smiled faintly and held the mission list in his hand. He said, "It shall be you." Not only could Xiaochen test the results of his cultivation, but he could also obtain rewards. This mission was tailor-made for him. The Haotian province was vast and boundless. Just this province was larger than the entire Great Jin nation of the Tianwu continent. There were 9 large cities in the province, hundreds of medium-sized cities, and no less than 1,000 small cities. Dingshui City, which Xiaochen wanted to go to, was one of these small cities. Dingshui City sat at the border of the Haotian province and the White Feather province. The White Feather province was very large as well. The rank 8 sect, the Rising Heaven Pavilion, guarded this province. If this were any other place, given the Rising Heaven Pavilion's strength, it would not be an overlord. However, Dingshui City was too close to the Haotian sect. As the saying went, one mountain cannot hold 2 tigers. Only one overlord could exist in one place. The Haotian sect suppressed the Rising Heaven Pavilion for many years, overshadowing it. Haotian City was very far from Dingshui City, several million kilometers away. Due to the restrictions of the Kunlun realm, Xiaochen's speed was reduced by at least 20%. If Xiaochen wanted to fly over by himself, even if he did not eat or drink and rush day and night, he would still need a month. Clearly, it was not worth it. Fortunately, there were very few long-distance transportation formations in the Sky Dome realm. They were not rare in the Kunlun realm. This was a secret passed down from the immortal epoch. After several seniors of the Kunlun realm studied it for thousands of years, they finally made some headway. These transportation formations could be replicated. After all, they were just replicas. They could not achieve a perfect effect. Furthermore, the cost was very high. Even with the wealth of the Haotian sect, it could only set up a total of 10 transportation formations in the 9 cities of the Haotian province and its main sect. Even so, it made it much more convenient for cultivators to travel. Xiaochen only needed to go to Skymound City and ride a flying spirit beast to reach Dingshui City in 5 days. After Xiaochen accepted this mission, he did not waste any more time. He headed for the transportation plaza in the city. Just as he was about to leave, someone called out to him, "Brother Xiao, are you here to accept a mission as well?" In the crowded mission hall, Zhui Yushi had a joyful expression on his face as he quickly headed for Xiaochen with a group of people. Xiaochen turned his head back and discovered that Zhui Yushi's quintessence, which had been floating around, had withdrawn into his body. His cultivation had fallen from late-stage inferior-grade martial monarch to early-stage inferior-grade martial monarch. However, Zhui Yushi's aura was much sharper than before. The current Zhui Yushi was completely different from the Zhui Yushi of half a month ago. Clearly, Zhui Yushi was very satisfied with his current cultivation. As he walked, he could feel an indistinct self-confidence. However, when Zhui Yushi saw Xiaochen's cultivation, he was greatly startled. Xiaochen's cultivation was now completely withdrawn, like a pool of limpid autumn water, unfathomable. Xiaochen was clearly a middle-stage inferior-grade martial monarch, but the purity of his quintessence was much stronger than Zhui Yushi's. That is impossible. If he consumed the quintessence gathering pill, his cultivation would fall back to early stage inferior grade martial monarch. How could his cultivation be so much higher than mine? Could this be the effect of the superior grade quintessence gathering pill? No matter how Zhuo Yushi thought about it, this was the only possibility. Xiaochen, you already consumed the superior grade quintessence gathering pill? Zhuo Yushi asked. Zhuo Yushi had exposed the fact that he had a superior grade quintessence gathering pill in front of everyone. Xiaochen was slightly upset. However, Xiaochen understood Zhuo Yushi's character. He knew that Zhuo Yushi had not done it on purpose. So he could not get angry. He nodded and said, I guess so. When the group of people behind Zhuo Yushi heard that Xiaochen had consumed a superior grade quintessence gathering pill, a strange look flashed in their eyes. Chapter 655. Now these lower realm genius cultivators could be said to be poor. Several of them could not bear to part with spirit gathering pearls, and could not even afford inferior grade quintessence gathering pills. Unexpectedly, Xiaochen could buy superior grade spirit gathering pearls. He must have brought more spirit stones from the lower realm than them. A few people looked around, sizing up Xiaochen. No one knew what they were thinking. Zhuo Yushi invited warmly. That's right, Xiaochen, we just accepted an escort mission. It will take us half a month to complete. It is very safe. Do you want to come with us? There's no need. I accepted a mission to kill loose cultivators. If there is an opportunity in the future, let's work together again. Half a month was too long, and the reward would not be high. Xiaochen did not want to accept such a mission. So he waved his hand and rejected the other party's invitation. When Zhuo Yushi and the others heard this, they all revealed astonished expressions. Why did you accept a mission to kill loose cultivators? Although the reward is high, it is very dangerous. Most experienced disciples would not dare to accept it, Zhuo Yushi said. Loose cultivators were normally vicious and merciless. They had killed countless people and lived everywhere. Loose cultivators had rich combat experience and liked to do things as they pleased. They lived in blood and fire for a long time, and were all people who did not fear death. The competition in the sect was fierce, but it was rare for someone to die. Sect disciples compared to rogue cultivators. There was a clear difference in aura between sect disciples and loose cultivators. Missions to kill loose cultivators were usually completed by experienced inner sect disciples working in groups of 2 or 3. Zhuo Yushi said a lot, hoping that Xiaochen would change his mind and join them on the escort mission. I have made up my mind. I'll take my leave first. Xiaochen was very clear on his own strength. He did not want to say anything more, so he took his leave. Brother Zhuo, don't try to persuade him. If he wants to die, why stop him? We have just arrived in the Kunlun realm. How can we risk our lives so quickly? We have to accumulate our strength first. This fellow overestimates himself. If he were really powerful, he would be like Gui Wu and Situ Gang, forming a new faction. He would not need to hand over the spirit gathering pearls to Gui Wu. As they discussed the matter, they all revealed disdainful expressions as they watched Xiaochen leave. They all felt that he was seeking his own death. Zhuo Yushi also looked somewhat displeased. He had tried to persuade Xiaochen nicely, but this Xiaochen did not appreciate it at all. Since ancient times, sages and sages had always been lonely. The biggest reason was probably that no one could understand them. Xiaochen listened to everyone's words, but he didn't even have the thought of refuting them. After arriving at Sky Mound City through the teleportation formation, Xiaochen spent some spirit stones to obtain the information and whereabouts of that group of loose cultivators from an organization that sold information. That group of loose cultivators had a total of 7 people. They were all middle-stage inferior grade martial monarchs. The leader was a peak inferior grade martial monarch. He had even consumed the priceless quintessence gathering pill on the black market. These 7 people frequently committed crimes in the nearby provinces. They were wanted by several provinces, earning themselves the nickname of the 7 Black Wind Killers. Their infamy spread far and wide in the nearby provinces. Loose cultivators were extremely crafty. The 7 Black Wind Killers were even more so. Several times, the true inheritors of the large sects or elders went to capture them. These people would scatter when they heard the news, fleeing in all directions, not wanting to fight. Even when they sent inner sect disciples, none of them returned. This gave the various large sects a headache. Xiaochen frowned slightly. He had not expected this group of loose cultivators to have such a reputation. The danger of this trip was probably much higher than he had imagined. The waning moon disappeared, and the stars disappeared. The night was dark. One could not even see their fingers when they stretched out their hands. The Feng clan, one of the 4 great clans of Dingshui City, was brightly lit. The entire residence was under martial law. Guards patrolled the large residence as though it was about to face a great enemy. Half a month ago, the other 2 great clans of the city, the Tang clan and the Lu clan, were completely slaughtered by that group of loose cultivators. Women old and young all died miserably. Furthermore, the 7 Black Wind Killers announced that they would return in half a month. This made the entire Feng clan very uneasy. They feared that they would suffer the same fate as the previous 2 clans. All the elites of the Feng clan gathered in the Great Hall, including the Feng clan's clan head. There were a total of 5 inferior grade martial monarchs, 20-odd martial kings, and several hundred martial saints. However, no one felt safe. Everyone knew that if the 7 Black Wind Killers really came, they would not be able to do anything with their strength. The Feng clan's clan head was a middle-aged man in his 40s. He had a worried expression on his face as he muttered to himself, "I wonder if the Haotian sect has received our mission request?" However, after thinking about it, the Feng clan's clan head felt that the chances were slim. The true inheritors would definitely not come. The reward that the Feng clan's clan head offered would not attract many veteran disciples. Even if 1 or 2 came, they would not be of much use. No matter how the Feng clan's clan head thought about it, it was a hopeless situation. Ha ha ha. Who is the Feng clan's clan head? Hand over all your women and spirit stones, and we, the 7 Black Wind Killers, will give you a quick death. As the Feng clan's clan head pondered, arrogant laughter came from the distance. The voice was coarse and contained a killing chi that made everyone uncomfortable. They are here. The expressions of everyone in the hall changed. Panic flashed in their eyes. The hands holding their weapons even trembled slightly. The 7 Black Wind Killers were infamous. Their methods were cruel. Before the battle even started, they already put a lot of pressure on everyone's hearts. 5 minutes passed. However, after the 7 Black Wind Killers laughed, they still did not appear. This made everyone feel suspicious. Based on the earlier voice, the 7 Black Wind Killers were already less than 5 kilometers away. How could they not be here yet? The Feng clan's clan had thought of a possibility. He grasped his sword tightly and said, "Let's go out and take a look." The group left the great hall and looked up. They saw a tall building in front. A young bladesman dressed in white stood calmly on the roof of the building. His appearance could not be seen clearly. In front of him were 7 black-clothed men radiating ferocious auras and surging killing chi. They stood on the roof of a building opposite. The 7 black-clothed men exuded a heavy stench of blood. That was a bone-deep killing chi that could not be washed away no matter what. The person in the lead had only one left eye. The other was a grayish-white right eye. There was also a scarlet scar around the eye socket. At a glance, it looked like a bloody hole. This was extremely horrifying. If one were a timid person, they would not even be able to look them in the eye. Fear before the battle even started would cause one to lose their composure. Where did this brat come from? How dare he block our way? Beside the one-eyed man, a man who was as skinny as a monkey and had a wretched look in his eyes shouted. These words contained a baleful aura. As the sound waves drifted over, they tried to enter Xiao Chen's mind. Xiao Chen's expression did not change. The mental energy in his sea of consciousness surged like waves as he said coldly, "So what if I block your way?" His voice was also imbued with his powerful mind power, and the sound waves rumbled. As the sound waves surged, they clashed with the skinny man's voice and easily broke the killing chi in his words. The sound waves did not stop and continued forward. The skinny man grunted and took a step back, suffering a small disadvantage at Xiao Chen's hands. When the leader, the one-eyed man, saw this scene, he smiled sinisterly and said, "You are quite capable. Brat, which sect are you from? After you die, I will send your head back." I am the Haotian sect inner sect disciple Xiaochen. My name is Xiaochen, and my name is Chun. Xiaochen said unhurriedly, however, I'm afraid you will not be able to obtain my head. You'd better lend me your head. Xiaochen's unhurried speech gave off a feeling of laziness at first, causing others to lower their guard. However, Xiaochen said the last word cleanly and without any hesitation. By the time they reacted and Xiaochen finished speaking, Xiaochen had already left. Oh no! The one-eyed man's expression changed as he shouted, Old Seven, be careful! In the quiet night, there was no moon or stars. Suddenly, a gust of wind blew, and the sound of punches came from the wind. It was Xiaochen who executed the Azure Dragon Tail Whip. He moved in an intense arc in the air, heading for the weakest of the seven. Then he charged at lightning speed at the weakest person of the seven. When that person sensed Xiaochen's sudden attack, although he was astonished, he did not panic. This showed his rich combat experience. That person's right ear twitched slightly as he listened carefully to the sound of the wind. Then he reacted quickly. Without hesitation, he turned his body and punched at Xiaochen. Bang! When the two fists collided, there was an explosion of surging shock waves. A strong wind blew everywhere, making it difficult to keep one's eyes open. That person did not move at all. He watched as Xiaochen's figure slowly disappeared into the strong wind. He smiled coldly and said, Insignificant tricks. Our 7 Black Wind Killers have killed countless inner sect disciples like you. Is that so? A voice came from above him. He felt flustered for no reason. When he looked up, he discovered that there was actually another Xiaochen above him. Without giving that person any time to react, Xiaochen circulated all the vital qi in his body and executed the Dragon Claw Fist's breaking armor fist, forming a sharp shockwave. Xiaochen broke through that person's protective quintessence and struck the Tianmen acupoint on his head. This was one of the fatal acupoints of the human body. Blood leaked out of that person's mouth as he died on the spot. Everything happened in the time it took for a spark to fly. In just a few breaths, the weakest person was killed by Xiaochen. When the others looked carefully, they discovered that the figure hidden in the wind was just a clone. You are seeking death. The 7 Black Wind Killers moved unhindered everywhere, living a free and unfettered life. What kind of storm had they not seen before? Even the true inheritors, elders, and administrators of the sect could not do anything to them. Unexpectedly, Xiaochen managed to take down one of them in just one exchange. Furthermore, that person was just an inner sect disciple of the Haotian sect. The one-eyed man shouted and released his killing qi. He drew a cavalry saber and sent out a dazzling saber light as he hacked down. The other 5 reacted quickly as well. As they moved, they blocked off all of Xiaochen's paths of retreat. In the blink of an eye, they formed a tight encirclement, trapping Xiaochen inside. These people blocked off Xiaochen's paths of retreat. They wanted to force him to clash head-on with the one-eyed man, not allowing him to escape. However, did Xiaochen need to retreat? Xiaochen smiled gently and flipped his hand. The lunar shadow saber appeared from the universe ring. He grasped the saber hilt with his right hand, and a light came out of the scabbard. Xiao, Xiao, Xiao. With every step Xiaochen took in the air, he left behind an afterimage. Each afterimage sent out a different saber strike. Chapter 656. By the time Xiaochen clashed with the one-eyed man's saber light, he had already left behind 6 afterimages. The afterimages instantly merged together, and a dazzling saber light shot out from his saber. His aura soared. The 2 sabers clashed. As the one-eyed man expected, the scene of Xiaochen flying back in a sorry state did not happen. Instead, the one-eyed man got blasted back by this saber strike. A gap immediately appeared in the tight encirclement. Xiaochen did not get greedy. For this one-eyed man to have lived for so long, he definitely had some ability. Xiaochen's body swayed gently, and he escaped the encirclement of the 6 people. Then he landed on the roof behind him. When the Feng clan's clan head, who was in the brightly lit residence below, saw this scene, he was extremely astonished. An inner sect disciple actually managed to escape from the 7 Black Wind Killers. Not only was he safe and sound, but he even managed to subdue one of them. Such strength was simply unimaginable. The Foam Clan's clan head muttered. Strange, I know all the leaders of the Intersect's 5 big factions. How come I have never heard of a white-robed bladesman? When did this person appear? Clan head, we are probably saved this time, someone at the side said joyfully. The Foam Clan's clan head shook his head and said, It is hard to say. The 7 Black Wind Killers are not that easy to deal with. The reason that person died at his hands was probably due to carelessness. This white-robed bladesman is still too careless. It would be great if he could recruit a few more companions. If the situation turns bad, we will immediately make a move to help. Kill. The one-eyed man calmed the surging quintessence in his body. His expression turned cold, and he revealed a sinister smile. Then, he led the 5 people over again. 5 surging, berserk-killing chi merged together, forming an undulating scarlet sea before everyone's eyes. As the waves splashed, vengeful spirits and malicious spirits charged out of the water, wailing loudly. Xiaochen felt slightly dizzy. He raised his eyebrows and thought to himself, I wonder how many people these fellows have killed to form so much baleful chi. If a regular cultivator did not have strong mental energy, they might even crumble before this overwhelming baleful chi. No wonder people said loose cultivators were hard to deal with. The mental energy in Xiao Chen's sea of consciousness circulated, expelling the uncomfortable feeling in his heart. Xiao Chen held his saber with one hand. His heart was calm as he dealt with the 6 people charging at him with a calm expression. In the pitch-black night, saber lights and sword shadows flew everywhere. The surrounding buildings collapsed one by one as a group of people fought intensely. The dense quintessence on Xiao Chen's saber light made the 7 Black Wind Killers feel extremely uncomfortable, aside from the one-eyed man. Every time he exchanged a move with Xiao Chen, the quintessence on his weapon would be broken by Xiao Chen's saber light, turning into hidden energy that entered his body through his weapon. The longer they fought, the more intense this feeling became. The 2 with the weaker physical bodies could not help but leak blood from the corners of their mouths. On the other hand, although Xiao Chen was attacked repeatedly by the 6 people, he fought steadily and surely. His powerful and condensed quintessential essence swept away most of the attacking chi. As for the remaining half, Xiao Chen relied on his horrifying physical body to block them without any pressure. Only the one-eyed man's attacks could cause him some trouble. Big brother, this is troublesome. Did we fall for a trap? This fellow might be a peak character in the inner sect. The reason the 7 Black Wind Killers could live for so long was not because they were unrivaled. Instead, it was because they could judge the situation. If they encountered a true disciple, sect elder, or a famous young expert, they would immediately avoid the battle and flee far away. At this moment, one of them could no longer hold on. He thought of retreating, so he sent a voice projection to the one-eyed man. The one-eyed man replied coldly, If you dare to run, I will chop you in half. I recognize the portraits of the inner sect's 5 great experts. This brat is definitely holding on. If we kill him, the spirit gathering pearls on him will help me advance to medial grade martial monarch. Feeling helpless, the 6 continued to clench their teeth and hold on, waiting for Xiao Chen to crumble. The calm and composed Xiao Chen continued to block the attacks of the 6 in an unflustered manner. As he watched the black-clothed men vomit blood from the hidden energy, he silently calculated the time to make a move. Xiao Chen moved swiftly and decisively. When he truly made a move, he instantly turned the situation around. Pussy. After another 100 moves, 3 of the 7 Black Wind Killers vomited a mouthful of blood at the same time. The accumulated damage from the hidden energy exploded forth with a considerable might. Xiao Chen's eyes lit up. When he saw a strange light flash in the 3's eyes, he smiled coldly to himself. However, he still did not rush to make a move. Big brother, this brat did not fall for it. What should we do? It looks like he is not that inexperienced. He is very experienced. The 3 felt bitter in their hearts. They sent voice projections to the one-eyed man, complaining. The one-eyed man's entire left eye was already scarlet, looking very scary. His damaged right eye was even more horrifying. The wounds around it had already split open. The scar burst open, and scarlet blood seeped out continuously. The one-eyed man's originally ugly face now looked like an evil spirit from hell. I don't believe it. Burn your quintessence and destroy him in one breath. The one-eyed man sent a voice projection. The hearts of the others could not help but thump heavily. Burning their quintessence was truly cutting off all means of retreat. If they still could not defeat Xiaoqun, they would exhaust all their quintessence and would not even have a chance to flee. Xiao. Just as they hesitated, Xiaoqun, who had been fighting steadily and passively defending, suddenly made his move. He did not hold back his 60% comprehended saber intent. With the support of his saber intent, the slender saber gave off a beautiful flower-like light in the dark night. The saber trembled, and a resonant and pleasing hum resounded cheerfully. All the bladesmen in Dingshui City in the dark night were startled by this. All the bladesmen in Dingshui City, be they sleeping or cultivating, startled awake at this moment. They leaped out of their houses and looked into the distance. Kill! Xiaoqun's eyes turned scarlet. Since he intended to make a move, he needed to be swift and decisive. He also silently unleashed his peak state of massacre. The 7 Black Wind Killers, who frequently killed and drank blood, actually felt fear in their hearts when they saw Xiaoqun, who was as sharp as a saber. Electricity leaped about, and thunder roared in the dark night. Xiaoqun, who suddenly attacked, knocked the one-eyed man back with one saber strike. After that, Xiaoqun ignored the one-eyed man and charged at the person with the most severe internal injuries. Saber lights danced around, and Xiaoqun sent out 7 saber lights in the dark night. Each saber light split into 3 beams of light, charging over in an unending stream. Every saber light leaped about with purple electricity. As the saber lights flickered, that person seemed to see a sea of electricity surging at him. Dang! 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 At the critical moment, the one-eyed man performed better than usual, sending out 21 sword strikes and blocking all the saber lights. However, his quintessence was not as dense as Xiaoqun's. Every time the one-eyed man blocked a saber strike, he vomited a large mouthful of blood. After blocking 21 saber strikes, his complexion turned terrifyingly pale. However, Xiaoqun's saber light sea of fire was not just that. The sea of electricity that the one-eyed man saw was real. When the sea of electricity arrived, it directly blasted the one-eyed man to death. The remaining 4 exchanged glances. They had not expected Xiaoqun's attack to be so sharp and his timing to be so precise. Xiaoqun ignored the openings that they revealed earlier. Waiting for the moment they hesitated to make a move. This was not a sect disciple who had just come out of seclusion. His combat experience was even richer than theirs. Scram out here. When the one-eyed man saw Xiaoqun kill another person, he became flustered and exasperated. He grasped his saber with both hands, and the dense quintessence gave off an unparalleled sharpness as he sent it at the sea of electricity. The one-eyed man's saber was very fast. However, Xiaoqun, who was hidden in the sea of electricity, was even faster. Just as the sharp saber light was about to strike the sea of electricity, an even sharper and more resplendent saber light leaped out. The saber light was like a shadow, streaking across the night sky like a meteor. It was very fast. 3 lines of blood shot out. Saber wounds about 1 centimeter deep appeared on the necks of the other 3 7 Black Wind Killers, and they died instantly. The saber that leaped out of the sea of electricity was very beautiful. Even the beautiful meteor paled in comparison to it. Those 3 people did not even know how they died, not to mention where the saber came from. The dead did not know. Even the one-eyed man, who was still alive, did not know. The one-eyed man only saw the sea of electricity suddenly part, and a white figure flashed by. Then 3 of his capable subordinates died. The one-eyed man's gaze chased after Xiaoqun's figure. He looked around and discovered a white figure 200 meters in front of him with his back facing him. Blood dripped from the tip of the saber. The remnant saber intent in the air behind the figure had yet to scatter, buzzing loudly. Fear spread in the one-eyed man's heart. He did not think of anything else. He sheathed his saber and turned to flee. The one-eyed man flew forward with all his might, wanting to get as far away from that figure as possible. As a loose cultivator, the one-eyed man was not afraid of death. However, he did not want to end up like those 3, dying without even knowing how the other party had attacked. Xiaochen slowly turned around and watched the one-eyed man flee. His lips curled up in a smile. Under the night sky, that delicate face revealed an extremely cold smile. Roar! 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 3 dragon roars resounded from Xiaochen's chest. 3 blue dragon images appeared under Xiaochen's feet, carrying him into the air. In just 3 breaths, he caught up to the one-eyed man. I said before, I want to borrow your head. Xiaochen hacked down with his saber, knocking the one-eyed man, who had turned around in a hurry, into the ground. The tall building behind him collapsed. 4-season saber technique, fated person in autumn waters. Not giving this person any chance to flee, Xiaochen sent out a gentle saber light. It was like the gentle smile of a fated person, filled with endless sorrow, warmth, and gentleness. The one-eyed man, who had just stood up, felt an autumn wind blow his face. It was like a young girl gently caressing his chest. Then a bloody, bowl-sized hole appeared in his heart. You are definitely not an inner sect disciple of the Haotian sect. The one-eyed man looked at the wound on his chest and pointed at Xiaochen, feeling extremely dissatisfied. Now the 7 black wind killers, who had been causing trouble everywhere and living freely, were all dead. The entire Feng clan residence fell silent. As they looked at the white-robed bladesman slowly descending from the sky, unspeakable shock appeared in their eyes. Who is this person? To think that he managed to kill the 7 black wind killers alone. The 7 black wind killers swept through the 18 southern provinces, coming and going like the wind. They burned, killed, and plundered for a long time. Unexpectedly, they all died at the hands of a youth today. Chapter 657. His saber intent is very strong. In our 18 southern provinces, there are not many young bladesmen with stronger saber intents than him. When that saber intent first came out, I could not control my saber. When the many bladesmen heard the hum of the saber, their eyes filled with shock. Ignoring the discussions and gazes of the others, Xiaochen raised the bodies of the 7 black wind killers one by one and chopped off their heads. Xiaochen returned the heads to the Haotian sect as proof that he had completed the mission. Then he removed the spatial rings of the 7 black wind killers one by one. Loose cultivators pursued a life of pleasure. Who knew when they might die? Normally, they would not have much wealth on them. However, this group of people had just robbed 2 clans. They should have some things on them. After doing all this, Xiaochen stood on the blue dragon and landed before the Feng clan's clan head. He took out the mission list and said, "You are the one who issued the mission for the Haotian sect, right? Put your fingerprint here." The Feng clan's clan head was somewhat dazed. Even now he could not believe that the 7 black wind killers, who had stirred up trouble in Dingshui City and kept everyone on tenterhooks, had died just like that. After Xiaochen reminded the Feng clan head again, he reacted and quickly put his fingerprint on the mission list. Then he performed a cupped fist salute and said, "Many thanks for young hero's help. The entire Feng clan is unable to repay you. You are too serious. I took someone's money, so I helped them eliminate their calamity. That is all." Smiling gently, Xiaochen performed a cupped fist salute and took his leave. Then his white figure vanished into the vast night before everyone's eyes. Xiaochen had come in the dark and left in the night. He came and went like the wind, disappearing without a trace. The pitch-black night did not change because of him. Only the 7 headless corpses lying on the ground silently spoke of Xiaochen's achievements and fame. After a long time, when everyone had left, 2 figures with strong auras flew into the city from a distance. When he flew into the city and saw the 7 headless corpses, he looked at each other in dismay, feeling somewhat depressed. The 2 wore alternating blue and white robes. The one on the right had a sword at his waist, and the one on the left had 2 sabers on his back. If the people of Dingshui City were here, they would have recognized them as Rising Sky Pavilion disciples based on the sect insignia on their chests. Furthermore, they were inner sect disciples with high statuses. Dingshui City was located at the border of the Haotian province and White Feather province. Historically, Dingshui City had been under the jurisdiction of White Feather province and Haotian province. It could be considered a relatively chaotic place. There were many cities like this in all the major states. Such a city with unclear ownership was also a place that individual cultivators were most willing to visit. The square-faced cultivator carrying 2 sabers looked at the 7 headless corpses and said, "Senior Brother Wang, we are too late. Someone killed the 7 Black Wind Killers before us." The kings. The Black Rogs. The Black roared. The Sky Saints. The Black. Were 7. The 7. The Black frequently. The 7. The cultivator with the 2 sabers was Lu Feihu. The handsome swordsman with the sword at his waist was Wang Feng. These 2 were the peak inner sect disciples of the Rising Sky Pavilion. Coincidentally, they had accepted the mission to kill the 7. When they received the news, they immediately rushed to Dingshui City. Unexpectedly, they were still too late. Wang Feng remained silent. After a while, a ferocious light flashed in his eyes. He said, "The blood from the wounds has not coagulated yet. This person has not gone far. There should be people in the city who saw what happened." Lu Feihu immediately understood what Wang Feng meant. After wandering the world for so long, this was not the first time he had done something like this. Lu Feihu made a prompt decision and grabbed a nearby cultivator. Then he inquired about what had happened. After the 2 heard it, disbelief flashed in their eyes. Lu Feihu said, "That's impossible. An inner sect disciple that I have never heard of easily killed the 7. If it were one of the 5 old experts of the Haotian sect's inner sect, I might believe it. After all, these 5 are already very close to the strength of a true inheritor." Wang Feng's pitch-black eyes also revealed an uncertain expression. However, he was not in a rush to object like Lu Feihu. After a long time, Wang Feng voiced his opinion. The reason the 7 Black Wind Killers can run amok for so long is not because their cultivation is much higher than that of an ordinary inner sect disciple. After all, loose cultivators do not have as many resources as sect disciples. Instead, it is because of the baleful aura they have and their rich combat experience. With these 2 added together, inner sect disciples who just left the sect would not be able to gain any advantage against them. Lu Feihu was not stupid. He immediately figured it out. He said, "You mean to say that this person might be a disciple with a lot of experience from the lower realm? His killing intent and combat experience are no weaker than the 7 Black Wind Killers?" Wang Feng nodded and said, "That's right. That is the only possibility." He did not rely on his cultivation to kill the 7 Black Wind Killers. He is definitely not a match for us. This person is definitely going to use the transportation formation from Sky Mound City to Haotian City. We just have to stop him before he gets there. As Xiaoqun left the city, he did not know that 2 peak inner sect disciples of the Rising Sky Pavilion had already targeted him. At this moment, Xiaoqun had an expression of anticipation as he opened the spatial rings on the 7 Black Wind Killers' hands. Aside from some truly strong bandits, loose cultivators normally would not have a lot of wealth on them. The reason was very simple. If they had a lot of resources, they would not have to take the risk of plundering everywhere. Furthermore, they were not in a sect. If they wanted to buy medicinal pills, they would be much more expensive than sect disciples. For example, in the Haotian sect, an inferior grade quintessence gathering pill only costs 50,000 superior grade spirit stones. In the outside world, it would cost more than 200,000 superior grade spirit stones. To loose cultivators, the spirit gathering pearls that the sect gave them for free were treasures that they craved. Even if one had money, it would be difficult to buy them. As loose cultivators, they lived precariously. Who knew when they might die at the hands of others? They always pursued the principle of enjoying themselves while they could, spending as much wealth as they could. However, there would always be surprises. Occasionally, there would be news of someone killing a loose cultivator in the Tianwu domain and obtaining an unexpected fortune. However, today Xiaoqun probably had no fate with this surprise. Of the 7 spatial rings, he opened 6 in a row. In the end, there were no treasures worth looking at. However, there were spirit herbs under 1,000 years old, medicinal pills worth several thousand superior grade spirit stones, and yellow ranked profound ranked martial techniques and cultivation techniques. There were countless of them. These should be the wealth that they had obtained after looting the 2 clans of Dingshui City. Given the size of Dingshui City and its geographical location, it was easy to imagine how many treasures the four clans had accumulated. The only consolation was that the 6 of them had some superior grade spirit stones on them. Altogether, they had more than 100,000. To Xiaochun, who had spent all his superior grade spirit stones on the quintessence gathering pill, this solved some of his urgent problems. Xiaochun shifted his gaze to the last spatial ring. That was the spatial ring of the one-eyed man of the 7 Black Wind Killers. This person was the leader of the 7 Black Wind Killers, and also the strongest. If nothing out of the ordinary happened, his wealth should be a little more than the other 6 combined. Filled with anticipation, Xiaochun sent his spiritual sense into this person's spatial ring. After a rough scan, he got a rough idea of what was inside. There were more than 200,000 superior grade spirit stones, more than 20 inferior grade spirit gathering pearls, 1 inferior grade quintessence gathering pill, and a peak grade medicinal pill for instantly replenishing quintessence. Xiaochun smiled faintly. At least there was some profit. In total, there were 400,000 superior grade spirit stones. The 20 inferior grade spirit gathering pearls could be considered a windfall. What Xiaochun lacked now were inferior grade spirit gathering pearls. Only the surging quintessence in the spirit gathering pearls could speed up his cultivation. Superior grade spirit stones could only be used as currency. After tidying up everything, Xiaochun hurried on his way, pondering over his actions in the previous battle. What was wrong and what was good for him? The last strike of the blade flash and thunder shadow was the first time that it was used against so many people at the same time, and it achieved an effect that even Xiaochun could not have imagined. If Xiaochun was not wrong, this lightning shadow saber light should be an inferior grade heaven-ranked martial technique. It was of a lower rank than the blue dragon goes to sea, but its effects were not much worse. Moreover, it did not consume as much quintessential essence. In the future, Xiaochun could use Saber Light Thunder Shadow as his trump card and Blue Dragon Goes to Sea as his trump card. Heaven-ranked martial techniques were different from Earth-ranked martial techniques. One had to continuously comprehend and dig deeper. Every 10% increase in might would result in a completely different outcome. No matter how much one dug deeper into an Earth-ranked martial technique, it would only be like the Four-Season Saber technique. Its potential was limited. After all, its creation was based on essence. However, heaven-ranked martial techniques could continuously make breakthroughs. They were based on even stronger quintessential essence. Even if one broke through to martial sage in the future, or even peak martial sage, one could continue using it. It would not become outdated. Xiaochun muttered to himself, I can only bring out 30% of Saber Light Thunder Shadow's might. However, this name sounds rather unpleasant. When I have time in the future, I have to think of a better name. The original move was called Sword Light Fire Shadow, which sounded pretty good. However, after changing it to Saber Light Thunder Shadow, it seemed rather ordinary. Along the way, Xiaochun looked relaxed. In reality, he was not idle at all. He continuously thought about the various variations of the Saber Light Thunder Shadow. 4 days later, the majestic Sky Mound City came into view. Xiaochun could not help but increase his pace. When he passed a forest, Xiaochun could not help but frown slightly. He had been to this forest before. It was a place one had to pass to get to and from Sky Mound City. However, there were no strong spirit beasts in the forest. There were only some ordinary birds and beasts. Logically speaking, there should not be any danger. However, Xiaochun had clearly felt a killing intent earlier. That killing intent disappeared in an instant. It had been hidden very well. Xiaochun had always been very confident in his senses. He immediately sent out his spiritual sense and searched the forest carefully. Strange, I clearly felt a killing intent. Why did my spiritual sense not discover anything? Xiaochun withdrew his spiritual sense and revealed a suspicious expression. In the Kunlun realm, the laws were restricted. When cultivators flew, not only were they slower than in the lower realms, but they also exhausted more quintessential essence. Unless their lives were in danger, regular cultivators would not casually fly for long periods of time. Xiaochun looked at the forest and thought for a while. In the end, he decided to enter it. Chapter 658. At worst, if there was any danger, he could just flee. Among those of the same generation, Xiaochen did not dare claim to be unrivaled. However, he was still proud of his speed. If he ran into a martial sage or someone close to that level, there was no need to think too much. If a martial sage wanted to kill him, no matter how he ran, it would be pointless to think too much. There was a narrow path in the quiet forest. As Xiaochen walked on it, his expression remained the same as usual. However, he kept his spiritual sense on the surroundings at all times. All sorts of small birds rested on the green trees on both sides of the path. These birds were unique to the Kunlun realm, and were very intelligent. The chirping sounds rang out crisply without end. Carried by the gentle wind, the sounds continued to spread into the distance. Everything seemed to be the same as usual. The more it looked like this, the more cautious Xiaochen became. The 99 drops of pearl-like quintessence liquid above his dantian spun quickly, ready to counterattack at any time if he met with any danger. Bang! Suddenly, the ground in front of and behind Xiaochen split open, and two figures leaped out. A sharp killing intent spread out like a strong wind. Flap! 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 The birds perched on the trees were startled. They flapped their wings in a fluster and fled in flocks. The person in front held two sabers in his hands. The two sabers danced around quickly, creating a chaotic saber wind. His aura was startling, like a torrential storm pouring down. The saber wind chopped down the surrounding trees, turning them into wood shavings that filled the air and danced in the wind. When one looked around, dust and wood shavings filled the air behind the dual saber man. Shockwaves surged out like surging waves. When he attacked, he raised his aura to its peak. As for the person behind him, he held a 1-meter-long sword. The sword light was withdrawn, looking simple and plain. He was like a sharp arrow tearing through the air, rushing forward. Compared to the startling aura of the dual saber cultivator, this person was very simple. The two formed a sharp contrast. One was very skillful, and the other had a horrifying aura. When the two attacked at the same time, a dense killing intent encased Xiaochen. They wanted to take down Xiaochen in one move. Xiaochen kept his spiritual sense on the surroundings. He did not panic when the two suddenly attacked. In the blink of an eye, he had found several openings in the joint attacks of the two. Then, he quickly analyzed which openings he could use to allow him to suffer the least damage and retreat. The opportunity was fleeting. Xiaochen had never been a wishy-washy person. After thinking for a moment, he made his move. Xiaochen drew his saber and sent out a dazzling light. He had already agitated his quintessence and infused it into his saber. Gotcha! Xiaochen turned around and blocked the simple sword behind him. It looked like a simple sword, but it contained an extraordinary amount of power. When the sword and the saber collided, a series of energy ripples erupted and spread in all directions, directly uprooting the surrounding trees and crushing them into powder. Dust billowed, and when the dust from the man with the twin sabers merged together, the entire scene turned chaotic and blurry. Xiaochen's arm went numb. He was astonished at the strength of that swordsman. However, the situation had already developed according to his script, so he did not fear it. Xiaochen's figure trembled slightly, and he used the roaming dragon's 9 transformations to leave behind a clone. Then he soared into the sky and hid in the dust. Amid the dust, the man with the twin sabers watched as Xiaochen's clone flew over. He rejoiced and immediately swung his saber. Chi! Chi! In the blink of an eye, the two sabers sent out no less than 100 saber lights, chopping Xiaochen's clone into countless pieces. We fell for it. The man with the twin sabers cursed softly, his expression changing when he saw the situation. When all the dust settled, the two of them looked up and saw Xiaochen standing on a tree branch a kilometer away, calmly looking at the two of them. Naturally, these two were the Rising Sky Pavilion's Wang Feng and Lu Feihu. They had been lying in ambush here for a long time already and had made ample preparations. Unexpectedly, Xiaochen still managed to avoid their ambush. On the tree branch, Xiaochen carefully sensed the two's cultivations. The swordsman was a middle-stage medial-grade martial monarch. The man with the twin sabers was not weak either, an early-stage medial-grade martial monarch. Xiaochen could not help but frown slightly. The Kunlun realm was not like the lower realms. Here, a cultivator's strength would increase by a small cultivation realm. It would be incredibly difficult to fight someone of a higher cultivation realm. These two medial-grade martial monarchs were probably in trouble. When Xiaochen recognized the sect insignia on the other party's chest, he said coldly, "The Rising Sky Pavilion's people. I don't think I have any grudges with the two of you. Why are you blocking my way?" Lu Feihu crossed his twin sabers and smiled. "Naturally, we do not have any grudges with you. However, you have something that we want, so you have to stay." Wang Feng said calmly, "Just hand over the heads of the 7 Black Wind Killers. We will not take the treasures on them." Like the Haotian sect's mission hall, the Rising Sky Pavilion also had a contribution ranking every month. As long as one topped it, they would receive a great reward. Compared to the rewards, the Rising Sky Pavilion did not care about the 7 Black Wind Killers' wealth. When Xiaochen heard Wang Feng's natural tone, as though it was only right for him to take the heads that he had worked so hard to obtain, he could not help but laugh hoarsely. He said, "In that case, I'll say this as well. Quickly scram. Otherwise, when the Haotian sect's people find out that your Rising Sky Pavilion's people are behaving atrociously here, you will not be able to escape." Lu Feihu smiled sinisterly. His magnanimous face revealed a trace of incongruous viciousness as he said, "Haha. That is if you are alive and able to make it back alive." Right after Lu Feihu spoke, he prepared to make a move. However, Wang Feng stopped him. Wang Feng had exchanged a move with Xiaochen. Wang Feng had used 50% of his strength in that attack. However, as an inferior grade martial monarch, Xiaochen was able to receive it calmly. Unlike Lu Feihu, Wang Feng felt that this person before him was not as simple as an ordinary inferior grade martial monarch. Wang Feng smiled faintly and said, "This friend, how about selling the heads in your hand to us? 7 heads for 70,000 superior grade spirit stones." Xiaochen said rudely, "Sorry, I do not lack these spirit stones. I gave you face but you rejected it. Why are you speaking nonsense to him?" Lu Feihu had a fiery temper. He cursed and leaped into the air, charging over. Wang Feng's expression turned completely sullen. In his opinion, he had already given Xiaochen a lot of face. Unexpectedly, this fellow still overestimated himself. 2 were medial-grade martial monarchs, and 1 was a middle-stage medial-grade martial monarch. Furthermore, these 2 were peak intersect disciples of rank 8 sections. Xiaochen did some calculations. If he continued fighting, he would only have a 50% chance of victory. Furthermore, it would be a Pyrrhic victory. After all, Xiaochen was only an inferior grade martial monarch. Furthermore, he had not consumed the quintessence gathering pill yet. If he refined his quintessence with the quintessence gathering pill, he would not fear these 2. Xiaochen would not be able to gain any advantage in this fight. However, this Lu Feihu seemed to be underestimating him. Perhaps he still had a chance. With a thought, Xiaochen pushed off a tree branch and retreated. Right after Xiaochen dodged, Lu Feihu's sabers chopped the tree he was standing on into several pieces. Sharp saber chi flew around the forest. Kasie. Kasie. Many trees fell to the ground after being chopped in half. Lu Feihu's aura flourished as he chased after Xiaochen, hacking wildly at Xiaochen as he slowly closed in on him. A few more exquisite saber techniques forced Xiaochen into a corner. Lu Feihu laughed loudly and said, "Brat, let's see where you can run to." A look of horror flashed in Xiaochen's eyes as he retreated in a fluster. However, he quickly hid it and did his best to brandish his saber to block. When Lu Feihu noticed the look in Xiaochen's eyes, he felt very pleased. He thought to himself, "Your acting is pretty good. Do you think I cannot tell that you are just putting on a strong front?" Bang! The 2 sabers struck the pitch-black blade of the lunar shadow saber. A berserk saber intent and quintessence surged out. Xiaochen immediately vomited a large mouthful of blood and flew back miserably. When Lu Feihu saw the situation, he was even more certain of his thoughts. He smiled coldly and said, "Now you know how to regret it. Unfortunately, it is too late. Don't think that you are incredible just because you are a disciple of the Haotian sect." Lu Feihu took large strides and charged forward, forcing Xiaochen to retreat without being able to retaliate. When Wang Feng, who had been quietly following, saw this scene, he was surprised at first. However, he smiled in relief and said, "So that is how it is. I nearly got scared off by this brat. This brat should have suffered significant internal injuries from the initial attack. However, he endured it. He wanted to use his identity as a disciple of the Haotian sect to scare the two of them away without having to hand over the heads of the 7 Black Wind Killers. However, under Lu Feihu's ferocious attacks, he immediately exposed himself. He could not hide it even if he wanted to. After thinking for a while, Wang Feng concluded that the situation was as he guessed. He relaxed slightly and no longer followed Lu Feihu closely like before. Instead, he followed at a leisurely pace. Each move of Lu Feihu's was more ferocious than the one before. As he advanced, he forced Xiaochen into a sorry state. He could only barely deal with Lu Feihu. The surrounding trees were destroyed one by one like building blocks, turning into catkins that flew all over the sky. As Xiaochen raised his lunar shadow saber, he looked like he was blocking the other party's attacks in a sorry state. However, in reality, he was calculating every opening of Lu Feihu's. No, this opening is too small. Although I can force Lu Feihu back, he will be able to react quickly. I will not be able to injure him. This move will not do either. After I injure him, I will not be able to retreat. Wang Feng, who was at the side, will be able to catch up. Xiaochen circulated his energy and vomited another mouthful of blood. His face paled even more. Even as he faced the various opportunities, he remained absolutely calm, waiting for the best opportunity. Lu Feihu swung both his sabers and burst forth with surging quintessence. He knocked Xiaochen into the air and sent him crashing into the ground. When Lu Feihu saw Xiaochen struggling to stand up, he smiled sinisterly. He walked over step by step, lowering his guard to the lowest. Wang Feng, who was at the side, also revealed a sinister smile. He muttered to himself, "This fellow is finally an arrow at the end of its flight. This is the moment. Make your move." When Lu Feihu got within 2 meters of Xiaochen, something strange happened. Xiaochen, who looked weak and had difficulty standing up, suddenly soared into the air. He swung his saber 7 times. Each saber strike perfectly merged his quintessence and state of thunder. The 7 saber images split into 3, turning into 21 saber images. The saber light was very bright, and thunder roared. Xiaochen's aura suddenly reached its peak. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.